121. When the light of hope shines. Daigo, you said once you felt the sensation of death. Was it then? In the Tiga space-time, Hori watched the screen with a tight expression. He had planned to properly upgrade the Guts Wing to research along the lines of the Zeo defense team so Daigo wouldn't have to go into every desperate fight alone. He couldn't help in this kind of battle. Daigo said nothing. He closed his eyes as if recalling that memory. Falling into endless darkness, unable to move, feeling his consciousness dissipate. It was a terrifying thing to remember. He put his hand to his left chest, felt his heart beating, and said quietly, "I am not fighting alone. My strength comes from all of you." On the screen, Ultraman Tiga was swallowed whole by the dark mist. Rina's voice cracked with a sob. He disappeared into the darkness. Darkness? Captain Iruma, standing beside her, suddenly remembered what Daigo had told her before they parted. Although Ultraman is very powerful, if humans do not firmly believe in him, he cannot transform into light to fight. Human belief. Light. Right. Use light. Use light. Iruma grabbed her communicator and called to Munakata. "Commander, give the light to Ultraman Tiga." "Understood." Munakata nodded to Hori, who was piloting a fighter. "Hori Shinjo." "Understood." Two Guts fighter jets landed and swept their spotlights up at Ultraman Tiga. They hoped the beams would restore his power. "These lights won't be enough," Rina cried, and she turned the Sherrock's headlights on. But it wasn't just the strength of the lights. Compared to the flood of curses and fear aimed at Tiga, the few members of Guts were a tiny countercurrent. Captain Iruma realized it was time to mobilize the public. She didn't know if it would work. Could a being demonized as a monster still be trusted? But she believed there were more people than just the Guts members who still hoped in Ultraman Tiga. "Neri, connect our feed to the television stations." "On it!" Neri's fingers flew over the console. The big screens across the city switched from static to Captain Iruma's solemn face. She addressed everyone, followers of Kyrialoid and those who had stayed neutral, just as she had during the interviews before the Kyrialoid first attack. "I am Captain Iruma of Guts, part of the Earth Peace Alliance. Everyone, wake up. Those who call themselves angels are the real demons. Ultraman Tiga has always protected us. Now it's our turn to give him strength. Please, give your light to Ultraman Tiga." Her plea cut through the dark glass of television sets and PDIs into homes and streets. Tomoki, watching at home, suddenly understood why his mother was often absent, because she stood on the front lines protecting others. After the address, Iruma closed her PDI and tried to swallow a doubt. How many people would answer her call? Then, from outside, the city answered. Engines and horns, the patter of running feet and the shouts of citizens rose behind her. Tiny points of light appeared in the night. First one, then dozens, then lines, then a spreading surface. The lights grew brighter until the scattered points braided into a sea of illumination. People flooded the streets. Drivers turned on high beams, pedestrians flashed flashlights and lanterns. Everyone used whatever light they had, lifting it to the sky and directing it toward Ultraman Tiga. Their cries, pleas, prayers, hope, wove into an invisible current aimed at the fallen giant of light. Iruma's lips curved in a relieved smile. Even as darkness pressed in, the light of hope in people's hearts had not gone out. Suddenly, entire office towers and buildings around them started to flood with light, each window a beacon. "What's going on?" Neri exclaimed in the command room. "Voltage in Area B is spiking. Who is doing this?" On the other side of town, Tomoki had hacked into the regional power grid and forced every light he could reach to turn on. The system sent warnings. If the voltage rose any further, it would be dangerous. Tomoki didn't care. What does it matter? We must save Ultraman Tiga. Above the gate of hell, the Kyrialoid glanced back in irritation. Where had so many people come from? These were not the angel-winged converts he had expected. Not all humans had been fooled. He scowled as realization dawned. There was a group who still believed in the Protector. With a casual hellfire bomb, he could have wiped them out, but the gate was almost open. He had to keep pulling. Could flashlights and headlights really revive Ultraman Tiga? The idea seemed absurd, but the Kyrialoid chose to ignore the crowd and kept tugging at the gate, trying to finish his work before he engaged Tiga. In the Zeta universe, Juggler smirked as he watched the crowd. "I knew there were still sensible people," he said. Between an empty-handed liar and a hero who protects silently, most people know how to choose. He grumbled inwardly about past failures. If only Ganun had more like this, and drank from a bubbling green glass. He cursed several names under his breath, and then froze, wondering what he'd just swallowed. Yuka offered him another drink with a smile, and he forced a grin back, muttering complaints that were half admiration. At the space garrison, the first Ultraman felt warmth and nodded with a smile. As expected of one called the Light of Hope, he observed. Zeta pressed close, curious. Mebius clapped Zeta on the shoulder and explained that after gathering humanity's light of hope, Tiga could transform into an incredibly powerful form. Zeta listened, eyes bright with envy and determination. He wanted to meet Ultraman Tiga someday. Back in the pitch-black cage, Daigo lay curled and battered, his eyes squeezed shut as despair tried to swallow him. Voices of hatred and accusation pressed in. Demon, Ultraman Tiga is a demon. Calamity began because of you. Since you appeared, Earth has been plagued by disasters. The words sought to break his last hold on consciousness. Then the dark weave of the cage began to shift. Weak beams of light pierced the blackness, and the slightest warmth touched his skin. Ultraman Tiga, stand up! The voices, Captain Aruma the crowd, called again and again. Daigo's eyelashes fluttered. He forced them open, but for a moment there was nothing. Ultraman Tiga, wake up! Stand up! Warm, brilliant shafts of light stabbed through the dark one after another. Daigo, on the verge of surrendering, snapped his eyes fully open to a tide of light rolling over him. It gathered, braided, and became a single golden orb that banished the surrounding gloom. The Ultraman heart, which had nearly stopped, beat again. This is humanity's light of hope, Daigo whispered, trembling. He reached for it. The instant his fingers touched the orb, a force he'd never felt before surged through him, through his bones and limbs. He gripped it tighter. Outside, where thousands watched, the fallen giant of light shuddered. His chest that had lain still rose and fell anew, and his dimmed eyes brightened. Under the flood of human illumination and the chorus of encouragement, Ultraman Tiga slowly sat up and lifted his left hand to the human light that had saved him. The pose echoed a giant mural on a nearby building, Michelangelo's creation of Adam, the hand of man reaching for the divine. The Savior, once named and worshipped like a god, had been resurrected by human light. It was humanity itself that had given him strength. They had sent a beam that cut through the night and guided him. He was not just the warrior of light who defeated demons, he was the one guided by human hope. Look, he's up! Ultraman Tiga is standing again. A wave of cheer burst from the crowds. The Caryoloid, who had been ready to block the giant from the gate, froze. His plans had hinged on keeping Tiga from interfering until the gate opened and demons poured through. But the resurrected Tiga radiated such a powerful aura that the Caryoloid's instincts screamed caution. He leapt down and put himself in Tiga's path, intending only to stall, buy time until the gate opened and his allies swarmed through. This Tiga, however, didn't look like one to be stalled. Tiga walked forward step by measured step, each movement dripping with confidence and an unshakable resolve to end the threat. The Caryoloid felt a pressure pressing at him, a crushing certainty that the tide had turned. Whatever he had planned, this was no longer a simple delay. The battle had shifted, humanity had lit the way, and the giant of light had risen to meet the darkness. 122, Shining Prototype. He feels different. Land of Light. Zero stared at the screen, eyes bright with admiration. It's sort of like the Shining State we saw in the Time-Space Castle, but not the same. This seems like a prototype, not his final form. But even so, Zeta said, scratching his head, the outcome of this fight already feels decided. Mirai Hikari smiled as the image on the screen shifted. The background mist of purple and black gave way to a shimmer of light. Tiga's classic battle theme rose again, the Inheritor of Light. Among the ruins, Tiga grunted, rolled his shoulders, and shifted back into his multi-type. The Caryoloid followed suit, retracting its massive wings and dropping its aerial form, not out of honor but because the wings got in the way in close quarters. It lashed out with its wrist blades, slashing at Tiga's head. But Tiga's reaction was faster than the alien had expected. He spun, swept the Caryoloid's leg, and tripped it into a spin, an Ultraman trip. The Caryoloid scrambled up and met a heavy kick to the abdomen that folded its spine like a shrimp. Before it could inhale, Tiga clasped its head and threw it aside. The Caryloid skidded, rolled, and sprang up again, dazed. What's happening? Why is his power different? It surged forward in a blind fury, fists and feet blurred, but each attack was countered. The Caryloid, which had once easily crushed Tiga's power type, found itself being outclassed by his multi-type. Speed, strength, technique. Tiga now had them all in a new balance. The Caryloid, as an alien, could sense something others couldn't. A faint golden light flickering beneath Tiga's body, a strange reservoir of power. Humans. Are those humans giving him that? Daigo's long-suppressed anger finally broke free. He hammered at joints and exposed parts of the Caryloid, places the armor didn't cover. Bang, bang, bang! Heavy blows thudded home, and punches rained across the alien's face. Tiga, fueled by a personal grudge, stomped on arms and knees. You dared to lock my neck with a blade. You dared to step on my chest. You bastard. The Caryloid was beaten to a pulp and couldn't even lift its hands. Tiga hoisted it and hurled it toward the gate it had been prying open. The Caryloid slammed against the gate with tremendous force, enough to close it. It spat curses in its mind. Who designed this damn door? Why does it only open outwards? I opened it this far and now it's shut again. If I could push it inward, there was no time. Tiga spread his hands over the fallen alien and a purple flare burst from his color timer. He took a dangerous starting pose. The Caryloid blacked out with dread as Tiga unleashed a roaring, blinding beam. The gate of hell and the Caryloid that had struck it were obliterated into fragments and vanished into the night. Behind the gate, the other Caryloids, primped and gloating just moments before, were splattered with dust and debris. They blinked through the smoke and found their grand doorway gone. Where's the door? The explosion lit the sky. Tiga stared at the ruin where the gate once stood, then turned his attention. Voices rose, cheers, applause, shouts of relief. That's amazing. The real devil is defeated. Tiga, I love you. Flashlights and small lamps bobbed in the darkness. Those faces and smiles etched themselves into Daigo's heart. He realized in that instant that he had people behind him who supported and believed in him. He raised a hand and, in the glow of their light, gave the crowd a thumbs up, Ultraman's thumbs up. Then he climbed into the sky, riding the light the people had sent him, and disappeared over the horizon. The next morning, at Captain Iruma's home, the mood was quiet and warm. Captain Iruma came with Daigo and Rina. Grandma had been waiting with Tomoki and rushed forward. Captain Iruma was in casual clothes, not her Guts uniform. Smiling gently at Tomoki, she said, Neri, one of the Guts members, investigated and found that the person who accessed the network illegally and caused that voltage anomaly in Area B lives here. Tomoki's face paled. He thought he'd caused a huge problem. His voice trembled. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. The moment the word left his lips, Captain Iruma's smile froze. It had been a long time since she'd heard him call her that. For a second surprise, then tears. A smile broke over her face and her voice caught. You called me, Mom. She hugged him tightly. There's nothing to apologize for. Because of you, everyone was saved. Daigo and Reina exchanged a warm, knowing smile as the scene held on that tender moment. Just when viewers thought the Caryloid battle was over, the camera lingered a little longer and then shifted to the lawn nearby. A pair of discarded angel wings, the kind once worn by the believers, lay in the grass. A pale, witch-like set of legs walked into frame. A woman in plain, worn clothes picked up the wings, brushed off dust and dead leaves, and tucked them away. The scene ended. On chat streams and in whispered conversations, people wondered, who was that, Caryloid or human? Who knows? If those wings were left here, someone would pick them up. Even when the facts are clear, some will still cling to the Caryloid's lie. People are diverse. As long as darkness exists in hearts, the devil never truly dies. Far away in the Kingdom universe, Trigger watched the footage and thought of Tiga's pose like a prototype. The name Trigger had in the Land of Light fit him, mad curiosity. He remembered Taro telling him that Ultramen don't save humanity alone, they fight alongside it. There's a bond. Taro always saw the positive side of things. Trigger, newly arrived in the kingdom, had not yet suffered loss like Snark's death, had not reached for the power of an evil god, had not crossed paths with Lugiel, Grigio, or the Space Witch. His color timer still flashed red. He had not yet walked the path of abandoning light and darkness. Tiga's actions made him want to take another look at Taro's words. In the galaxy, Daichi and X watched the relay with shining eyes. "It's incredible to have seen both Senior Ultraman and Senior Tiga together," Daichi said, thinking wistfully of fighting alongside them. Across the feed, Shinjo stretched and laughed. "It's finally over. I didn't crash in either Carryoid battle. Look at me grow." Hori pumped a fist. When Tiga stood up, that was awesome. Daigo watched with a mix of relief and lingering annoyance at the Carryoid's dirty tricks. He wondered what a third encounter might bring. He wasn't Zoffy. He wouldn't be so easily sidelined. A line of text scrolled across the top of the screen. "The great Carryoid god has abandoned this earth. Hey, there's a kid here who looks a bit like Tiga. Let's beat him up." Note, the following footage will be live and replayed a few times. Live broadcast? Daigo froze, remembering a previous relay when he and others had sent their light to the Ultra Brothers fighting Yapul on another moon in another space-time. Maybe this time, too, he could influence the next battle. 123. Akito. I am the human form of Triga. The timeline. Let's rewind a bit. While the inventory video replayed the ancient blood feud between Tiga and the Kyrialoids, people in the Triga universe hardly paid any attention. Maybe they'd already learned from their predecessors, or perhaps this was just a clumsy imitation. Kyrialoid 3 had slipped into this time and space and quietly cast powerful illusions. Everyone on the Elite Victory team, except Yuna, and even Carmiara and 2 of the Dark Giants, were trapped in private fantasies. They were all lost in their own little worlds. Viewers from other realms were treated to the Elite Victory team's most embarrassing moments. The 3 captains were each absorbed in their own illusions. Marlulu was daydreaming about a 2-story wooden house with a low table, the sort of place the alien Metron race seemed obsessed with. The handful of people there didn't look particularly dependable, so the fantasy didn't attract much attention. The trio of Dark Giants, however, were more entertaining. Hudra imagined himself as the boss, hands on hips in proud ignorance of what schemes he might be weaving, still relatively normal, at least by his standards. Beside him, Carmiara, president of the Triga World's Cutest Fan Club, crossed her arms and purred. "Ah, Triga, my Triga, are you coming back to me? Are you also a Tigacans?" Dagon, who'd been silent, squatted nearby with his back to the others, clutching the white flower Yuna had given him. Thinking back to Yuna's earlier confession, Dagon's 3,000-year-old face flushed with boyish shyness. Shinjo scratched his head, disbelief plain on his face. "Why am I the only one single for 10,000 years?" he grumbled. "It can't be that Daigo and Lena will have kids later, and I'm still single, right? No way." "Relax. Didn't they say it's a Kyrialoid illusion? They just don't realize it," Daigo and Hori said, one patting his shoulder on either side. Shinjo shot them a look. He'd meant to thank his brothers, but then remembered both of them seemed to have good luck in love. He grit his teeth and barked at them instead. "Go to hell!" Attention then snapped to a gigantic monster that had appeared. 2 faces, 4 eyes, a grotesque silhouette. "Wait, Golba!" someone shouted. Daigo studied it carefully. No, its body has Melba traits too. Some sort of ancient fusion. "Fusion?" Hori snorted. "With that look, I'd say Melba tried to swallow Golba and got it stuck in its throat. Whether fusion or not wasn't as important as the fact that this Golba had horns, 2 prominent horns sticking up. It burst through the void and started rampaging through the city. That was until a young man on the ground charged forward. Kengo had also been caught by the Carryoid illusion. His dream had been oddly centered on Carmiara, and he woke with a strange warm feeling in his chest. Heart-pounding, he wondered if he'd just gained some strange XP. He gaped at the rampaging Golba, tightened his grip on the Gut's spark lens, the shining rod, and shouted, "Everyone was so happy today, but you had to come out and ruin it. Die!" Whoosh! A giant of interwoven light leapt and delivered a flying kick straight into Golba's chest. Triga seized one of Golba's giant horns with one hand and with the other brought down an ancestral hand chop on the other horn. "Harder!" he barked. Daigo watched, pleased. Whoever this Triga was, Daigo couldn't place his exact relation to the original. He was clearly an ultra warrior in Triga's mold. The hand chop, the horn technique, not perfect, but bristling with potential. Golba, beaten and restrained, roared and fired a golden destructive beam that pushed Trigga back. Ah! Trigga braced, gouging furrows in the ground with both hands. Stronger than it was on Mars? Kengo felt that something was off. Was Golba always this strong? Or could he really solo an Ultra Warrior today? Confidence bubbled up in the illusion-touched monster's tiny brain. It was practically wearing invincible. Spectators murmured in alarm and fascination. Have the Kyriloids improved? They can even cast illusions on Ultras and monsters? Someone asked. Their brute strength might not be greater, another countered, but their illusion technique is something the previous generations didn't have. A little like Gijera, but it only affects specific people. Do the Kyriloids think they can take Earth this way? Maybe one of them just passed through, saw someone who looked like Tiga, and decided to mess with him. That seems narrow in scope, but it fits my impression of them. Can Tiga chase the Kyriloids through time and space? While everyone debated, Yuna in the scene felt the battle had stalled and wanted to help Kengo, but didn't know how. Guts had gone haywire. The Nurse Desai and Guts Falcon had been shot down and were badly damaged, unable to support. Then someone stepped forward. Ajito! Zeta clenched his fist and called the name, recognition flashing. He's here, the Earthling who can link the Z-Riser and Ultra Metals, shouted a spectator, a spark of hope igniting in their eyes. Ah Guang's face lit up too. In his mind, Ultraman Orb and Akito Hijiri were already the civilian and military champions of Earth. Maybe Akito had some new black technology to show. He watched with interest. On screen, Akito walked forward calmly and signaled Yuna not to worry. He flashed an unshakable smile. When I was making a gift for the captain, I noticed a mistake, so I modified the Ultra X key. He drew a small device from his waist. Yuna's eyes widened in confusion. Akito, what are you talking about? I finally got the light. I was chosen by the light, Akito cried, nearly breathless with excitement. Finally, he could become an Ultra Warrior too. Outside the screen, Guang nodded. The phrasing was odd, but compared to Alien Emperor's constant Hikari, he didn't mind a human saying it. The tech, though, that sparked real curiosity. Had Akito transcended humanity under the illusion, or picked up some remnant of light from when he helped Zeta? No, that would affect his intellect, thought Guang. But still, could he actually become Ultraman? On screen, Akito pressed the Ultra X key with ceremony. There was even a theatrical sound cue. Ultraman Trigga, multi-type. He clicked the key into the Ultra Galaxy Fight, Riser, then opened the device. Activate, Ziparian, he announced, raising the riser. Countless viewers blinked. Trigga? But Trigga was fighting Golba. How could Akito be transforming into him? Who then was Kengo? Theories flashed through minds. Maybe this timeline's Ultra could split into multiple bodies and fight simultaneously. Maybe Ultraman Trigga would be killed and replaced. Another tribute. Either way, Akito's attempt fascinated the audience. If a human scientist could truly become an Ultra, he might be another Hikari. Akito shifted his feet, raised the device, and struck a transformation pose like Kengo's. Building the future, light of hope. Trigga! A blinding radiance flared and triumphant music swelled. For a breathless moment, the audience thought it had worked. Then Akito simply stood there. The glow faded. A breeze moved a couple of withered leaves. Nothing happened. Sudden silence. Viewers blinked. Can't transform? Why shout then? Yuna in the scene stared at the Guts spark lens and then at Akito, bewildered. Akito's face flushed with confusion. He'd felt nothing. No surge of light answered him. Why can't I transform into Trigga? He demanded, panic creeping into his voice. Why couldn't he become light? Was his Guts spark lens just a toy? He yanked the Ultra X key out, peered at the slot, and did the classic dust blow, card removal and pocket of first aid maintenance. Maybe it's dust, poor contact, he muttered. He shoved the key back in, raised the riser again, and yelled, Trigga! The Trigga fighting Golba glanced over, puzzled by the shout. The riser emitted a few warning beeps, but Akito, trapped in the illusion, didn't notice. Yuna watched him, a baffled expression on her face. What was happening today? Was someone sneaking in sabotage? Why did everyone seem off? Even Ignis. No, Kengo was pretty much his usual self, if angrier than normal after seeing Golba wreck things. P.S. To any readers taking college entrance exams, good luck. If you're not, well, this won't help you now. And one more thing. Never study civil engineering if you can avoid it. Run far away. Don't wait until you're on a construction site to regret it. This is a painful lesson from my good brother. 124. Chaos is about to begin. Yuna, bewildered, dragged Akito, who had been turned into a Triga puppet, back to the nurse sister. Once they were together again, the truth hit her. The elite victory team had been turned into chaos. Everyone was acting out, but somehow they also seemed eerily ordinary. Ignis was the first to snap out of it. He stared at what he'd taken for a treasure map and laughed hollowly. It was just a hamburger wrapper. He told Yuna what he'd discovered, and one by one, the others were yanked out of their fantasies. Akito's special Ultra X key was only an ordinary key. He still couldn't obtain the light. Hima's $1 million lottery ticket turned out to be nothing more than a neighborhood raffle stub. Teshin's prized model poster had long since been photographed by someone else. Marlulu never found the wooden 2-story house Metron Seijin liked. Captain Tatsumi's appointment as commander was nothing but a medical report diagnosing a liver deficiency, not a kidney problem, for the record. Ignis patted the dejected captain on the shoulder. "Looks like we were all hit by some kind of mental attack," he said. "Anyway, let's go deal with Triga first," Yuna urged. On the battlefield, Golba, brimming with confidence, wrapped Triga's neck in a tail whip. The pain made Triga's red light blink. He came out of the hallucination and realized the party plan he'd been dreaming about had never existed. He had imagined organizing a celebration for Captain Tatsumi, but from start to finish, it had only lived in his head. No one had intended to throw the party with him. A wave of inexplicable sorrow and anger flooded Kengo's chest. Boom! The nurse sister, having floated back up, fired a laser that drove Golba back. Triga used the opening to stand. In photon space, Kengo focused on Golba, drew a golden Ultra X key, and shouted the activation. Activation complete, Shining's Hyperion. Ancient light, shine across the universe. Eternal shining Triga. A golden giant of light rose between earth and sky. The crushing presence froze Golba, and before it could react, an eternal burst smashed its destructive ray, shredding Golba into fragments. As dust scattered, Golba's tiny brain cleared for a moment. Wait, wasn't I soloing Triga and preparing to take on the Five King? How did I die fighting Triggerman? What kind of dream was that? Triga, reverted to multi-type, spread his arms and took to the sky. From a nearby tall building, a man quietly watched his retreat. In the watcher's chest, something glowed blood-red, an entity reminiscent of a Caryoloid. He was clearly the mastermind. Caryoloid 3, head chef, Caryoloid Wang Gang. Space Garrison. This power. Hikari frowned as he watched Triga's eternal shining form on a monitor. What's wrong? Mebius asked. This energy seems very compatible with the Absolution clan, Hikari said. Guang, thinking of Tartarus's ability to travel between spacetimes, worried aloud. I wonder if he'll move to seize that power from Triga. Meanwhile, in the Kingdom universe, Brother Ta Zi inspected a display showing the 3 dark giants, the Eternal Core, and a sleeping mechanical beast, Diaboro. Is this the power of the Eternal Core? It's strong, certainly suited to our clan, he said with a nod. No, Diaboro replied, clenching his fists. For now, our goal remains Princess Yulian. Dealing with the Ultra Warriors of the Land of Light and forcing them to hand over the planet is our priority. Brother Tazi agreed. Triga's space-time could wait. There would be opportunities later, though he couldn't yet imagine how they would reach it. Back at the live feed, the deep-sea scene showed Dagon still squatting, staring blankly at a white flower Yuna had given him. It looks like the Dark Giant's hallucinations haven't been lifted yet. This Caryoloid 3's illusion technique is well done, someone observed. Oh, Master, why's that? A voice asked. Dumbass, the flower was given by a human. Would it really grow to human size? The other snapped. What if they didn't giantize underwater? That might be true. See? I'm clever. Slap! Ouch, why did you hit me? I told you not to call me Master. Hudra pinched his chin, baffled. If the 3 dark giants hadn't freed Golba, then who had turned their minds? Before he could puzzle this out, a frenzied voice cut through. Triga he? That one hallucination made Carmiara so excited for so long, someone joked. Triga's got away with them. Hudra had had enough. He snapped at Carmiara, taunting her. Wake up, Carmiara. Triga can't come back. How humiliating to have your body taken by a human. Your judgment is terrible. His insult hit home. Carmiara's face flared. A blue whip of light cracked across Hudra's cheek, a hard slap that knocked him off balance. She grabbed his throat. Dagon, still muttering, "Yuna, my Yuna, this flower smells so good," was drawn to the commotion. He tried to mediate. "Don't fight. What are the uses of a white rose? Whoever answers gets slap." The enraged pair ignored him completely. In their scuffle, the white flower Yuna had given Dagon dropped and slowly disintegrated into nothing. The strongman strategist's face fell. He understood instantly. It had been a hallucination. Sadness crept in. Yuna had never actually appeared to him or handed him a flower. A certain ace pilot, single for 10,000 years, who'd been watching, let out a cheer at the drama, but Dagon had little time to grieve. The fight between the two had escalated. Under the setting sun, Yuna and Kengo scanned the city for fluctuations in illusion energy. Kengo looked distracted, replaying the image of Carmiara smiling at him in his dream. He found himself unsettled. Carmiara had trusted him completely in that hallucination. Even more troubling was the old thought that his origins might lie in darkness, despite being born of light. It weighed on him. "She's a little strange," Yuna said, pulling him back to the present. A mysterious man watched them from the shadows. "Is this the third Carioloid? His hairline's too high." Daigo muttered, trying to make sense of how or why Tiga had appeared in this space-time. Yuna noticed the stranger turn and walk away and gave chase. Kengo moved to follow. Buzz, dark mist boiled overhead. Two giant figures crashed to earth, Carmiara and Hudra. They'd been fighting in their hallucination and ended up here. Carmiara and Hudra? Aren't they on the same side? Kengo wondered, unaware that Hudra's earlier insult was the spark. Dagon suddenly appeared from a void and tried to calm things. "Stop this. Someone has cast hallucinatory energy on us. Everything we saw before was fake." "Ha!" Hudra sneered. "Then I should thank whoever showed me how foolish Carmiara is." That was all Carmiara needed. "You brat, are you looking for a fight?" she snapped, and the tension flared anew. "Stop it, Carmiara," Dagon begged. He stepped forward to intervene like a weary older sibling. He grabbed Carmiara's arm, but she casually tossed him aside. He flew through the air and crashed to the ground. The sight stunned countless viewers. Good. I want to see blood," someone jeered in the chat feed. I remember their nicknames were Enchanting Warrior, Mighty Fighter, Agile Strategist. This is all backward. Never provoke an angry woman. As the online commentary swelled, aftershocks from the brawl split Yuna and Kengo apart. Earth and rock flew, dust roared, and Kengo feared Yuna had been hurt. Enraged, he decided to transform and get in there before the whole city was torn apart. He charged toward the fighters, shouting. But then the Giant of Light's entrance left everyone speechless. Before the stunned crowd, Trega flew in with a kick that sent the calm mediator Dagon sprawling. Dagon lay on the ground and sputtered, incredulous. "Are you kidding me?" 125. A moment of mental turmoil is a moment of enlightenment. Ha! I'm dying laughing. First a kick to Dagon when he tried to break up the fight. I'm starting to pity Brother Gongzi. First he found out the confession was fake, then he went to break up a fight between teammates and ended up getting kicked. This is the highest level of breaking up a fight. Make everyone calm down by getting beaten yourself, then you can stop them. Good heavens, this is the ancestral ultra method of breaking up fights, isn't it? Amid the sympathetic yet gleeful laughter of countless viewers, a grand melee began. Dagon, caught off guard, was sent sprawling by the kick, taking Carmiara and Hudra down with him. He scrambled to his feet, bewildered. "Why are you hitting me? I try to be the good guy, and this is what I get," he protested. Yuna, Trega looked around instinctively, but could neither see nor sense her. She hadn't been affected. Kengo Manaka. Carmiara was the first to regain her feet and was beside herself. Triga's sudden betrayal, leaving without a word, filled her with bitter hatred, and the dawning realization that Kengo might be occupying Triga's body only made that hatred burn hotter. In her fury, she lost focus, and Triga made short work of her, knocking her down in a few moves. Hudra, who had been watching and enjoying the chaos, leapt in at the sight of Carmiara falling to land a sneak attack. After Triga dodged, he crouched next to Carmiara and sneered, "You got pretty messed up, huh?" "Shut up," Carmiara snapped. Dagon had only just shoved Triga away. Seeing Hudra prodding them again, he turned back to keep an eye on the pair, not wanting the scuffle to reignite. Fortunately for Triga, Kengo's presence drew their attention. The three, each with their own motives, now collectively focused on him and launched what looked like a righteous group attack. Under the setting sun, Triga, in his composite form, fought three at once, taking down Hudra and Dagon in succession. Countless viewers nodded at his skill. This kid had a knack for fighting when outnumbered. Labut, watching, felt oddly familiar with Triga's movements. The martial art of receiving, transforming, and striking reminded him of his own style. But the advantage didn't last. As Carmiara's anger flared, her light whip lashed out. The overwhelmed Triga had to shift into his shining eternal form. Then an interesting scene unfolded. On the surface, it was 3 against 1, but it looked as if all the damage was being dealt by Carmiara. Hudra managed a few blows occasionally, while Dagon mostly hovered on the periphery, making a token effort and then retreating, unsure what to do. He couldn't restrain Carmiara, nor could he really help Triga. He seemed resigned to being her punching bag. Clang! Before long, only 2 of the 4 combatants remained facing off. In the dying light, Carmiara's azure whip and the eternal blade sparked fiercely against each other. The duo were almost nose to nose. Carmiara seemed trapped in an illusion. No, she had known it was an illusion long ago and simply refused to wake from it. She kept telling herself that Triga and Kengo Manaka were 2 different people, that Kengo had taken over Triga's body. She clung to that belief like a lifeline. How dare you try to occupy Triga's body? Get out of him. Just go away. Her hysterical, tear-filled words reached Kengo and chilled him. The sight of those tear-like streaks under her eyes left him bereft of the will to fight. Complex emotions swelled in him. Perhaps memories of Hokuto and Minami Yuko's regrets, perhaps guilt from a dream he'd had. He held back, unable to strike with force. He knew he had to say something, but before he could find the words, "Gotcha!" a sharp cry rang behind him, and a violent blow to his back sent him stumbling. Hudra, grinning, had deliberately ruined what looked like their only chance to talk. This guy actually ambushed him? If he'd tried to calm her first, they might not even have had to fight, and now it's interrupted. The atmosphere was so tense, and this scoundrel had to learn from Dagon. He never meant to truly fight from start to finish. Oh, Dagon, he really earns my tears, gets his heart broken, and still has to play the old man. Hudra's ambush made viewers shake their heads in exasperation. Whatever his motives, everyone saw it as intentional. With the fragile moment destroyed, the battle exploded again. After only a heartbeat's calm, Carmiara surged forward and, with the others, pressed the attack on Triga. Yuna, who had been tracking Kisaragi, lost her trail while darting about. Seeing Triga at a disadvantage, she knew she had to help him. But using Yusarel's power terrified her. The magic had a risk she could not ignore. Yuna. Mitsukuni Shizuma had found his daughter and hurried her to safety. But when Carmiara caught sight of Yuna's face, so like Yusarel's, murderous intent flared in her. Her light whip began to spin. Triga broke free from Dagon's restraint and shoved Carmiara back. Dagon breathed a silent sigh of relief. The elite victory team, which had been slacking, finally repaired their fighter jet and opened fire with light bullet and NASCAR. The scene that followed made countless viewers laugh and wince. Dagon again took the brunt of the damage. He had been trying to break up the fight the whole time. Everyone else was showing off, and only Dagon kept getting beaten. Under Mitsukuni's protection, Yuna froze, watching her teammates tear at each other. She knew she couldn't simply run away. "Father, I'm scared. I'm afraid of dying," she whispered, looking up at him. She remembered the Ultra Warriors she had seen. None of them truly wanted to die, but they all protected what mattered more than themselves. "But I must." Points of white light began to bloom from her body, Yusarel's light. Yuna, steeling herself beyond her fear, finally chose to use the power. The process was agonizing. Snap. A large, warm hand closed over hers. Mitsukuni, as a father, shared the pain of bearing that power with her, smiling gently. "Yuna, let Dad be with you." Father and daughter smiled at one another, enduring the strain together. "Wait, Mitsukuni's body is glowing too?" Daigo watched in surprise. Beneath Yusarel's ancient light, there was another golden radiance. Though hidden deep in his heart, as Tiga's human host, he recognized a familiarity in that glow. Could Tiga's appearance be linked to him? Daigo stared at Mitsukuni, trying to make sense of it. Considering how outrageous the original TV series could be, I'll adjust some settings later. Some of the information and rewritten elements here are partly referenced from Brother Otter's explanation of Carmiera. I'll do my best to keep things logically consistent. Please bear with me. 126. A J3 player who only picks up bargains is trash. A ball of light flew from the ring on Yuna's hand and merged into Triga's body. The surge of power instantly restored some of his depleted energy. No longer hesitating, Triga unleashed his ultimate, Eternal Gelantis Beam, a fluorescent purple, crescent-shaped beam wrapped in arcs of golden lightning shot from the blade of light. With unstoppable force, it cleaved through the air toward Hudra. A vertical slash, dead center on Hudra. Triga's still sore about that sneak attack earlier, huh? Too bad, it only grazed him. Not a direct hit. Finally, Dagon's not the one getting pummeled. Amid the crowd's sighs and exclamations, the three dark giants were knocked to the ground. Carmiera and Dagon were caught in the blast's aftermath, rather than hit directly. With Usurel awakened, Hudra remembered his long-laid plan and chose to retreat immediately. Dagon, badly hurt, withdrew as well. Only Carmiera, her heart burning with rage, refused to leave. She staggered to her feet, reached out, and lunged toward Yuna again. Usurel! Plans to awaken Usurel and the talk of an eternal core no longer mattered to her. She only wanted to kill the woman who had taken Triga away from her. He'd do that for her, she snarled. A gust of wind, a golden giant of light rushing from the other side, blocked her path. The blade of light gleamed in the setting sun. With a slight lift, it could have been placed at Carmiera's throat and stopped her. Wait, what is Triga doing with a sword? Now it's just the two of them left. Are they really going to fight? Sigh. Ultra Warriors are so straightforward. No surprises there. But then, something unexpected happened. The Keriloid illusion pried something loose in Kengo Manaka's memory, fragments from 30 million years ago. Carmiera's near-hysterical expression made him understand some things. As the blade of light began to dissolve into particles, Triga, at the last moment, reached out and grabbed Carmiera's hand, stopping her from stabbing Yuna and her father. Bloody energy slammed into him relentlessly. Triga grunted and held her hand all the tighter. The instant their bodies touched, they were swept into a space woven from black and white. In that liminal place, Kengo Manaka stood quietly. Carmiera wrenched free and drove fist after fist into his chest. Bang, bang, bang! Two lava-like tear streaks beneath her eyes glowed faintly. Dark power saturated her. Kengo Manaka tasted blood in his mouth. Why, Triga? 30 million years ago, why did you betray me and leave without a word, she cried. And now, 30 million years later, you still reject me. You still stand between me and killing Usurel. Triga, she sobbed, pounding at him until her strength began to ebb. Finally, her arms fell and she collapsed, spent. In the space of light and dark, only an almost inaudible sobbing remained. I was deceived by that illusion too, Kengo Manaka said softly once she had emptied herself. In that dream, I saw you turn your back to me without hesitation. I saw you smile. He paused, voice low. That's when I remembered. Why I became obsessed with smiles. Why I hoped that, 30 million years later, when the Ruru Yi bloomed, it would make everyone smile. What nonsense are you talking about? Is this some game? Carmiera hissed, teeth bared. In the super-ancient era, there was a legend. When a flower called Ruru Yi blooms, those who see it can't help but smile, and fortune follows. Kengo shook his head and explained gently. To many believers, it was the most beautiful flower of all, the flower of hope. It appears only to those who hold deep longing. After I was found and raised by my mother on Mars, I became a botanist. During a research project, I thought I cultivated a flower and called it Ruru Ye. Looking back, it wasn't something I grew. It appeared before me. What are you saying, Kengo Manaka? I don't have patience for this. What I want to say is about the Ruru Ye. He crouched to meet her eyes. Ever since I first saw you, those two tear streaks were always on your face. I wondered, did Carmiera, who always acted like a leader, cry so much before? I promised myself I would find that flower and show it to you. Maybe its power could wipe away those streaks and bring your real smile. He hesitated, then reached out and brushed the dark streaks on her cheek with his wounded, bleeding hand. The moment his warm blood touched her skin, Carmiera trembled violently. Before she could slap his hand away, he continued, I remembered the vow I made 30 million years ago. I wanted that Ruru-yi to make you smile. I was obsessed with smiles. I regretted what I had become. My hands in that age were stained with blood. How could I demand beauty, the Ruru-yi, from anyone? How could I atone for the sins I committed against the super ancients? Then the eternal core called to me. It told me to shed the darkness, take up light, and use my remaining life to atone. You betrayed me and sealed me. Your words and deeds were different. Carmiera spat. Her accusation was blunt and cold, but it struck. Kengo's eyes filled with sorrow. Because I became obsessed with smiles, I regretted it. I thought if I could atone, I had to do more than deny the past. I heard the eternal core's call. It seemed the only way to atone was to become light. I had no choice. Something like pity flickered in Carmiera. Still, she scoffed. In the end, you just betrayed me, turning yourself into a so-called giant of light. You wanted to reject the power that once belonged to darkness. Anger rose, and she slapped his hand away. Using her hand like a blade, she aimed for his heart. Flesh gave with a wet sound. Blood spattered. Her hand pierced Kengo's chest, but then she suddenly drew it back, not plunging deeper. She looked at him, dazed by the heat of the blood on her arm, and muttered, "Why didn't you dodge?" "It was my fault 30 million years ago. I must apologize to you." Kengo Manaka's body shuddered with pain, but he still took her wounded hand and let an energy from his heart flow to her fingertips. Carmiera's pupils narrowed. Inside Kengo Manaka, her darkness and his light, rather than repelling each other, began to overlap and weave tightly together. "I will not reject your darkness," he said steadily, releasing more energy. "Perhaps once I would have. But when I saw you cry, I saw many senior Ultra Warriors on that screen earlier. Senior Ace, Senior Leo, none of them shirked their responsibilities. If I truly want to atone, I shouldn't deny my past, nor should I run from what lies between you and me." "Stop talking," Carmiera snapped, jerking her hand away. "You still think sweet words will fix this. I will never forgive you, Kengo Manaka. Remember that." The light and dark space shattered. To the onlookers in the real world, the two giants had been in contact only a few seconds. Carmiera's rage was still raw, but her earlier frenzy had noticeably softened. Black mist surged. A teleportation wormhole opened. Covering her face, she plunged into it, fleeing, unwilling to be seen crying. Perhaps she needed time alone to sort through what had been revealed. At least Kengo Manaka had confessed everything. Only Triga remained, standing silent. No one knew exactly what had passed between the two, but with the enemy retreating, Yuna and Mitsukuni exhaled in relief. A man with a deeply receding hairline stepped up from behind. He spread his hands and fixed Yuna with a cold stare. "It seems you are not qualified," he said. "I believed you, unaffected by illusions, were entirely rational and therefore worthy to receive our clan's power. Now I see." "Receive your power?" Mitsukuni growled, raising his hypergun against the man who had once laid waste to another dimension. "Humph. You just want to turn my daughter into a mindless puppet to control humanity. Whether that is true or not, your opinion is irrelevant, human." The man's chest pulsed with an invisible force. The ground cracked as blood-red energy, unique to the Kyriloid, ignited in his heart. Flames that devoured everything rose, bathing him in red light. The demonic giant form emerged, the Flame Demon Warrior, Kyriloid 3. He strode out arrogantly across hellfire and raised a hand toward the exhausted Triga, whose red light flickered, waving in a provocative challenge. From this chapter onward, Triga's plot will begin to shift little by little. 127. I will travel through time and space and do everything in my power to come to your side. I will travel through time and space and do everything in my power to come to your side. Good heavens, Kyriloid is truly outrageous, still so petty, always picking fights with the weak or sneaking up on someone. Golba's got bigger ambitions than that. At least he once dreamed of taking on the Five King alone. Triga's been fighting since afternoon and through the night. He's exhausted. This guy picked the perfect time to strike. Heh, Kyriloid soup is here. Triga, drink up. Kyriloid, you diva. Dare you spar on the streets of the Land of Light? I'll rip off your headgear. Ah, brothers, it's getting heated. Put. The crowd that had been watching Ultraman Tiga fight swarmed with disgust at the sudden appearance of Kyriloid 3, as if a cockroach had crawled into their homes. Daigo clenched his fists. Damn it. Why do these things always play dirty? Either they pick on somebody weaker, or they sneak attack. He'd been ambushed first, then dragged into battle with injuries. He probably didn't know that the Kyriloids' greatest weapon is their mouths. They insult, provoke, and undermine morale. One day in the future, Daigo would be disgusted by them again, in a screen. Kyriloids control people's minds and disturb their thoughts. I never imagined such demons would appear on Earth, Mitsukuni muttered, watching the enemy with mounting apprehension. As an investigator and ace pilot in the original Tiga Timeline's TPC, his piloting and situational awareness legendary, he knew every Kyriloid appearance was carefully prepared and more dangerous than the last. When Ultraman Tiga had fought them a second time, if it hadn't been for humanity lending their light, Earth would have slipped into an irretrievable abyss. Now he looked at Triga, whose red light flickered weakly. Worry filled his heart. Chibi, Kyriloid 3 struck while the iron was hot. Triga, exhausted and still stunned from having his heart torn out by Carmiera, lacked the energy to shift into his shining form. He could only stand his ground in composite form. One side strong, the other drained, the clash showed the difference immediately. Within a few moves, Kyriloid 3 had Triga by the throat and was raining blows down. The fight was utterly one-sided. The recently repaired Nurse Sister and Falcon poured all their weapons into the attack but couldn't even scratch Kyriloid 3. A Hellfire bomb struck them, and they lost combat capability. Not good, Mitsukuni called from the ground, desperation in his voice. At that moment, a golden light flared across Mitsukuni's body. Light? Yuna's eyes widened as she stared at her father. There's another light. It's hidden in Dad's body. The light of hope is still shining. It wasn't Triga's light. It was warm and powerful like the light that emanates from all Ultra Warriors. It seemed Yusarel's ancient power had awakened the light that had lain dormant in Mitsukuni for years. Mitsukuni himself, astonished, blurted, "His light is still hidden in me?" His meant Ultraman Tiga. No one knew why Mitsukuni from a different space-time should bear contact with Tiga, but now something major was happening. Dad, you told me anyone can become light through their own strength. I believe you can do it too, Yuna called. She reached out with Yusarel's power, and tiny motes of light flowed into Mitsukuni. The light of hope inside him fully surfaced, coalescing into a shining orb that materialized in his hand. Others couldn't make out what sat inside that light, but Daigo could. In Mitsukuni's hand lay the gut spark lens, shining rod. That familiar object made Daigo consider a possibility. This man had seen Ultraman Tiga's battles before. He had been one of those who had given Tiga light, transformed into light himself. But why would Mitsukuni be in another space-time? Why were the two worlds so alike? Guts and the elite victory team, TPC and TPU, and a giant of light named Triga. Daigo barely had time to puzzle over it. As those thoughts stirred, a sliver of his consciousness condensed into light and leapt across space-time into that distant world. On the screen, Triga's energy kept draining. The light of hope from another space-time cradled the shining gut spark lens high. For 30 years, Mitsukuni had remembered the hero's words, "Anyone can become light through their own strength." He gripped the gut spark lens with determination, and in an instant his will and body transmuted into a beam of light. A miracle unfolded. That light pierced the night sky and expanded until a giant figure emerged, the ancient warrior of light, the light of hope traversing space-time, Ultraman Tiga. Under the gloom of despair, the giant of light rose majestically. His red, purple, and silver form blended elegance with steadfast reliability, and the aura he radiated dispelled the blood-red clouds pressing down on the city. Kyriloid 3 flinched. He stared at the magnificent figure that seemed to be etched into his race's DNA, and it took him a moment to recover from the shock. Terror rose from his very core. He instinctively released Triga and took a step back. The swagger and taunts were gone. Wait, he thought in bewilderment. I'm not in the Tiga space-time, am I? How did he get here? Could it be because... He glanced up at the screen hovering in the sky and realized this world's actions were being observed from other space-time. Is Ultraman Tiga that vengeful? He came over just by being seen through a screen? This isn't Tom and Jerry. Far beyond, on an unknown planet, a cluster of Kyriloids watched the hero who had once defeated Gadanathor. They trembled. Holy crap, this guy is... Chibi, is Ultraman Tiga still after us? Back in the Tiga spacetime, confusion reigned. This is Ultraman Tiga? How did he appear here? And how did Mitsukuni become him? Shinjo rubbed his eyes and looked at Daigo, who sat there like a man with smoke rising from his head. That's strange. Daigo is right here. It seems Mitsukuni transformed into Ultraman Tiga, someone murmured. Hey, wait. Why do I feel like I've seen this appearance before? Daigo said nothing. He didn't understand either, though he knew that Ultraman Tiga draws strength from human light. If people truly yearn and lend their light, perhaps a strong response would come. Still, he was puzzled. A part of his consciousness had indeed slipped through. In the other world, taking advantage of Kiriloid 3's days, Tiga dragged himself to Ultraman Tiga's side. As his color timer dinged, Tiga swept one hand across his forehead and then placed both hands on his waist. Warm light flowed from the crystal on his forehead to the crystal on Tiga's. When those two lights, spanning spacetime, intersected, Kengo, who floated in photon space, saw Mitsukuni smile. Beside Mitsukuni stood that calm, kindly man with a familiar warm grin, Daigo. Kengo could scarcely believe it. He cried out, "Mr. Daigo!" P.S. About the work, Tiga. My personal take is that if you only watch the edits and listen to the music, it can seem high quality, but if you watch the full episode, the music is the clearest strength. I also don't like labels such as Reiwa Brother June or Reiwa Nexus Leo. You're your own person, not someone else. Such nicknames and some clout-chasing remarks don't suit the characters. The show's production quality is uneven, and it easily ignites arguments. Tiga's reputation in the Ultra fandom is polarizing, sometimes even attracting insults like T-fan. Expressing even a little preference or dislike can provoke harsh reactions. The Ultra fandom is already chaotic, with all sorts of people. Even in the comments on this book, there are a couple of lunatics. I don't know if you've seen them. Personally, I also disliked the original plot choice, where Mitsukuni summoned Ultraman Tiga instead of transforming into him. It didn't quite align with Daigo's lines. So I adjusted the plot here to have Mitsukuni transform into Ultraman Tiga, similar to the child in the Ultraman X movie. In any case, the story after Tiga will be changed anyway, so it won't matter. Two figures from different spacetimes exchanged glances. In the photon space, Kengo stared at the two figures before him in disbelief. Mr. Shizuma, no wonder you once told me about another hero who broke free from the shackles of fate, so you'd already met Daigo and Ultraman Tiga. At the name Daigo, Kengo's eyes filled with longing and joy. That's unbelievable. Mitsukuni smiled too. Ultraman Tiga isn't primarily controlled by me and Daigo. It's more like, this light. Daigo finished. Daigo nodded. The true driver of this body is the light of hope itself. Mitsukuni and I are only conscious presences inside it, helpers and vessels. Chibi, the two murmured. Their conversation was cut off by the voice of Kiriloid 3 from the opposite side. Daigo's smile vanished, and he fixed his gaze on the enemy that had given him so much trouble. Let's deal with it first, Kengo. Together. Hearing Daigo's steady voice, excitement swelled in Kengo. His whole body trembled with an emotion that felt like it rose from his soul. Okay. Kiriloid 3 had barely recovered from its panic. Whoosh! It threw its hand forward and launched a hellfire bomb. Scorching flames surged out, enveloping the two Ultras. They didn't dodge, and they didn't erect a shield. Both Giants of Light simply stood firm, and swallowed by all-consuming fire, they performed a transformation at once. Wouldn't it have been smarter to start in red form? Kengo thought fleetingly. In the blaze, a proclamation rang out. Ultraman Tiga, power type. Two crimson muscular giants of light blasted out of the flames, one to the left, one to the right, and each delivered a heavy punch to Kiriloid 3's chest. Boom! Two muffled thunderclaps rocked the air. Kiriloid 3 staggered back, unable to steady itself. Holy, invincible frames during transformation. Showing off, someone jeered. I learned something. You can be immune to damage while changing forms, another shouted. As expected of Ultraman Tiga, this is how a warrior of light fights. Asuka Shin, are you watching? More voices cheered, and the background music swelled perfectly into Tiga's classic battle theme, Hairs of Light. Enraged, Kiriloid launched a counterattack. It kicked back one charging Tiga, then turned to deal with Tiga. In the chaos, it caught a clear voice from the man it had just met. Kengo, watch closely. This is how you use power form. Bang! One of its punches was parried by Tiga. Before Carrieloid could react, a battering ram punch struck its soft ribs, sending bone-deep pain through it. The Carrieloid was flung backwards, groaning as it tried to recover. The two Ultras closed in and landed simultaneous kicks that made it flinch again. Hooah! With a low roar, both Tiga and Triga brought their forearms to their color timers. Crimson streams of energy converged into two spheres of light, and they fired. Twin Delasium light streams shot straight at Carrieloid 3. But this Carrieloid wasn't a pushover. Possibly having learned from seeing the invincible frame trick, it raised a hand and detonated a Hellfire bomb that blew the Delasium streams apart in midair. In that instant of blinding energy, demonic wings unfurled from its back, shifting it into an aerial stance. It vaulted high into the sky and spat out more Hellfire bombs, preparing to kite the two Ultras. Wait, this feels familiar, it thought. Can't beat them with power type, so switch to sky type to kite. Why does this scene feel like déjà vu? It had no time to dwell. Facing the Hellfire, Tiga and Triga raised their arms to shield their faces. Their prior refusal to dodge or use a screen had been odd. Some joked it was a salute to an old master, but the defensive power form was brutal. Even struck head-on by Hellfire bombs, both Ultramen walked away unscathed. Ah! With a mighty roar, they shifted forms again. The power type's waist slimmed, and the more elegant, graceful Sky type emerged. Ultraman Triga, Sky type! Yo, Kengo, your form change has an announcement? Daigo chuckled. Ahem, Mr. Daigo, I don't know either. Kengo blushed. He'd seen Zeta's form changes accompanied by a voice before, and assumed everyone did the same. Boom! Two sonic booms peeled through the night, white shockwaves rippling outward. Two figures, purple and blue, shot into the sky in pursuit of the demonic fire. The fleeing Carrieloid, tearing through the clouds, heard the repeated sonic blasts and glanced back. No, Tiga's still on me, and he brought another Tiga, it panicked. The mess its older brother and second sister had caused would fall on it alone. It sped up, but it couldn't shake the two murderous giants of light. Whoosh! Hellfire bombs rained down in an attempt to block them, but the Sky types moved with speed beyond Carrieloid's imagination. Tiga and Triga dodged easily and used the openings to close in. For a moment, three streaks of light, red, blue, and purple, tore across the night sky, splashing color across the darkness like broad brushstrokes. The three lights chased and collided so fiercely nobody could follow every movement. What is that? So fast, my eyes can't keep up. The three giants fight so fiercely the nebulae bend. The sky darkens, the sun and moon pale. The great Tao is undone. Most humans couldn't make out the fine details. All they saw were light bolts colliding, thunder rolling, sparks exploding, fireworks gone wild. In Space Garrison, the original Ultraman watched Tiga's posture and admired the skill. Excellent battle awareness, he said. Compared to Daigo's earlier fights, Ultraman Tiga's awareness and technique are much improved. The light of hope will be passed on in living beings and grow ever stronger. Perhaps that's why he appeared. Someone else mused as if lecturing juniors in an Ultraman University class. Yes, their skills please me, Ace smiled. Zeta, listening beside him, scratched his head. He caught Zero's kindly gaze, waved awkwardly, and paid close attention. In Triga's spacetime, Daigo was stunned. Though he wasn't in full control of Tiga, only a part of the light of hope, he felt Tiga's battle sense and experience deeply. The combat power was even greater than his own. So this is how Sky-type is played, he thought. He and Kengo were even more surprised to see how effortlessly the two Tigas coordinated despite never having fought together before. Their cooperation was flawless, perhaps a special bond between them. Tiga, catch! Daigo shouted. Whoosh, a speck of light pierced the dark. The circle arms flew through the air and landed in Tiga's hand. Though he'd never used it before, the two similar beings from different spacetimes had a perfect understanding. The moment he gripped it, Tiga knew exactly how to use the weapon. The blade extended, circle arms, sky sword, and it sang as it cut through the void. Whoosh! An azure assault arrow streaked out like a gale, leaving slashing wounds along Carrieloid's body. Again, Daigo realized, his own Sky type had lacked a true weapon, no wonder it always felt a little incomplete. One day, he'd visit the Land of Light and ask Hikari for gear. Finally, after a righteous 2-on-1 assault, Carrieloid began to show signs of exhaustion. Tiga and Triga seized the chance and fired their ultimate attacks, double Rambolt light bullet. Whoosh! One blue, one white, they struck exactly where the Kyriloid's spine joined its wings. Boom! A cataclysmic explosion rent the sky. Shockwaves peeled back the clouds. A blazing fireball fell from the heavens like a meteor, dramatically visible beneath the night. Viewers erupted in cheers. It's the Kyriloid, shot down from the sky. Just like how Tiga was defeated back then, this is karma. Severely wounded, Kyriloid 3 plunged headfirst into the earth, gouging a deep crater. Small winged Kyriloids circled overhead. The sensation of being driven into the ground felt familiar in a way it couldn't explain, just like how Tiga had been shot down by his second brother long ago. It never expected to receive retribution. Bang! Tiga and Triga touched down nearby. Dust soared, and from the clouded debris, a thunderous rumble sounded. Kyriloid stomped out, bellowing as it lunged at the two Ultramen. Many viewers were stunned. Its durability was impressive. After all those hits, it could still fight on. Only Kyriloid itself knew the truth. There was no escape now. If it could keep fighting 2-on-1, it might salvage one last victory and return as Kyriloid triumphant. But by then the outcome was clear. As Kyriloid charged, the two Ultraman shifted into their composite form in perfect synchrony. Under what looked like a Zeta-style battlefield camera angle, the Kyriloid struggled and unleashed every move, but fate was already sealed. Boom! The two Ultramen punched, pushing Kyriloid 3 aside. Then they froze, raised their arms, and extended them straight out. Two purple arcs of light shone brilliantly against the night, knitting together into one continuous beam. Double Zeppelian ray. The miraculous light pierced space-time, turning night into day. Beneath the hopeful stares of countless people, the radiant beam struck Kyriloid. Chibi! A pained howl and successive explosions ripped through the air. Kyriloid 3 was consumed by detonations and torn apart into fragments. The darkness beneath the sky cleared and starlight began to twinkle again. Separated by space-time and years, the two giants of light stood facing one another. They raised their hands, and with a gentle touch, their arms met, conveying the hope that had been divided for 25 years. 129. Each person is a unique light. It appeared. It's the Ultra arm bump. It's a return to simplicity. Before it was a nod and an arm bump that turned into a fist bump, and now it's gone back. So, light is inheritance. Watching the historic interaction between Tiga and Triga, countless viewers' eyes sparkled. This scene is just too ultra cool. Zeta clenched his fists with excitement. His gaze kept flicking to Zero beside him, and he thought, if I ever go to Earth in the future and face a powerful enemy, my master would... No, he would definitely come to save me, right? Definitely. Hehe. As the host then, not only might I get to stand in the center, I might even bump forearms or fists with my master like that. Just the thought made him lightheaded with excitement. Master, if there's a chance in the future, please let me stand in the middle and bump arms like them. Zeta blurted out to Zero. Zero looked like he was watching an idiot and was about to refuse, but something in his chest, an odd intuition, coupled with Zeta's eager expression, made it impossible to say no. He shook his head helplessly. What nonsense are you talking about? What's with standing in the middle? As long as you're happy, he relented. Triga space-time. Inside photon space. After 30 years, I didn't expect to see the hero who saved all of humanity again, Mitsukuni exclaimed. Though over 60 with an 18-year-old daughter, he was Daigo's contemporary, and that meant TPC's single count decreased by 1. Shinjo's pressure increased by 1. Yes, Mr. Daigo, I didn't expect to meet you like this. Kengo looked like a fan seeing his elder brother next door, smiling, delighted. When you say that, it makes me a bit embarrassed, Daigo replied. The me appearing here is only a consciousness. He looked around the familiar space with feeling. I am not Tiga, nor is Mitsukuni Tiga, but as long as hope exists in the heart, anyone can be Tiga. As for why I appeared, perhaps your and Mitsukuni's strong calls reached me. He waved and smiled at Kengo. You've done very well, Kengo. You've surprised me. Have I? At Daigo's praise, Kengo felt joy, and then a sudden, hollow disappointment. His smile froze. What's wrong? Daigo asked softly at the change. Mr. Daigo, I haven't done well. Kengo's voice held shame. When they met like this, their hearts linked, and both understood their worlds were parallel space-times. After hearing of Daigo's experiences, Kengo couldn't help but doubt himself. I haven't been as excellent as you. Sometimes I even wonder if I'm worthy of the title Light of Hope. I feel I let down those who believed in me. Those who were waiting for Tiga must have been disappointed when they saw me. Daigo listened quietly. When Kengo finished, he shook his head gently. Kengo, why think that way? Do you do everything only to be compared to someone else or to win approval like some transaction? Kengo opened his mouth to reply, but Daigo continued. I know you're not that kind of person, so why do you place yourself under that judgment? Your heart of guardianship is real. Your light has protected many people. They hope in you and count on your warmth, don't they? Daigo met the bewildered young man's eyes and smiled. I've always believed everyone can become light by their own strength, like Mitsukuni, who is a unique light. He exchanged a look with Mitsukuni, and they both reached out to pat Kengo's shoulder. You don't need to become Tiga, nor do you need to be me. You are Kengo Manaka, the light that protects everyone's smiles in this space-time, and that is enough. Time passed, and the moment of farewell drew near. A golden light rose from Daigo's hand and hovered in the air. This is my light, the light of Daigo Madoka himself. Daigo frowned slightly as he noticed the large bloodstains on the young man's chest. Don't try to bear everything alone, Kengo. A warrior's path can be lonely, but it won't always be. Your companions will walk with you. He placed his light into Kengo's hand. I hope this light can help you. I look forward to the day when you and I truly meet. He nodded gently, then transformed into light and returned to his own space-time. Mr. Daigo? Kengo stared at the drifting particles and said firmly, I understand. Outside photon space, Mitsukuni detached from the giant's form and returned to Yuna's side. Tiga and Triga both lowered their heads, their gazes resting on the smiling father and daughter. They nodded, then flew upward. Tiga's body dissipated in flight, leaving only a golden mote like morning sun, a light of hope in Mitsukuni's heart, quietly guarding the world. Triga, accompanied by that rain of gold, vanished into the night. Tiga's space-time. Part of Daigo's consciousness returned. He opened his eyes to the sight of Captain Iruma and the others trying not to laugh. What's wrong? He asked, bewildered and a little embarrassed. Daigo, I never noticed before, but you're a pretty good counselor. Hori teased. Yes, Mr. Daigo is really so gentle. Rina mimicked Kengo's tone, her expression playful. That's not the point. Shinjo shoved over and grabbed Daigo's shoulder, eyes wide. Daigo winced at the grip. Fighter jet! Fighter jet! What fighter jet? Daigo asked. Shinjo pointed at the live broadcast on the screen, trembling. Why can their fighter jets transform into Gundams? The landing Viking chicken. I want to fly one too. And the Nascender. It can turn into a dragon. I'm not a researcher, so don't ask me. Daigo pulled free, the end of Shinjo's sentence unvoiced in the wind of his thoughts. Even if it could transform into a Gundam, if you flew it, wouldn't you still crash twice? At that moment, the screen shifted again. It was still the live broadcast from Triga Spacetime. Daigo thought, Kengo, let's work hard together. He grabbed Hori and asked if he could replicate the Guts Sparklance. Triga Spacetime. Kengo sat alone beneath the stars. Daigo's words left him steadier, but the turmoil in his heart hadn't vanished. Carmiara, he remembered her leaving, and the light in his eyes dimmed. Kengo Manaka, I will never forgive you, remember that. Her cries and threats circled his mind, repeating. Kengo was quiet for a long time, then nodded once. I won't forget. Far away, deep in the sea, Dagon played both father and friend, quietly listening as Carmiara recounted what had happened earlier. Hudra, the jerk, had run off somewhere. Maybe it was better. If he and Carmiara were together, they'd probably start fighting again. Dagon wondered how it was he who felt most put upon, but when he heard a rumor that Triga had vowed 30 million years ago to seek out Ruru Ye, flower, to make Carmiara truly smile, his ears pricked. Who doesn't love gossip? Neither he nor Carmiara noticed, drifting in the deep-sea currents, a faint blue glow. It floated an unknown distance and merged into a cold blue figure. Hudra caressed his blade and sneered. Ruruyi flower? That's promising information. P.S. I've been brainstorming ideas for Trigger's rewritten ending. It's a tribute, but not a straight copy. I won't blindly mimic the original Tiga ending. I don't have the skill to reproduce those exact emotions and beats, but I'll do my best to make the logic complete. Since I've altered the setting, it won't take too many chapters. I haven't decided yet whether the ending will be happy or tragic. I'd like to hear your thoughts, so I won't spoil it for now. 130. The light reflecting the sea of the heart, Zeta spacetime. Beep, 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 beep. Dozens of Kurenai hummed together like a chorus of harmonicas, all grinning at him. On stage, one of them conducted, and the others played the orb song. Ah! What is that noise? Is this hell? Guy, you bastard, stop it right now. Juggler jerked awake, slapping his forehead. What an annoying dream. Ever since watching the Triga Spacetime broadcast, the ancient gossip between Triga and Carmiara, he'd been dreaming of his old life as a space mercenary. Miyabi, Jinobe, the Salome woman, even Bianchi had appeared in his dreams. It wasn't love. Seeing Carmiara always made him think of her in certain ways. He couldn't help laughing at himself for feeling oddly pleased. Captain, are you all right? I heard you shout, Yuka said, entering the command room. She looked exactly like Bianchi as always, curious. Probably because I drank your drink and had a nightmare, Juggler muttered. What? That was a special health tonic. You're human. Don't tell me you'd turn into an alien. Yuka scolded, but he only smiled and glanced up at the screen, speaking softly as if to himself and to Kengo on the other side. Being chained to the past or lost in fantasies about the future does nothing for the present. The only thing that matters is the now. Live in the present with everything you've got. Triga Spacetime. The deep-sea atmosphere was heavy and dark. Carmiara and Dagon sat in silence, each lost in his or her own thoughts. The plan they had once entertained, to seize the eternal core and remake the universe, had faded somewhere in that gloom. If I had woken 21 years earlier, wouldn't I have been the one to find Triga as a human infant? Carmiara murmured. Dagon had no idea what she meant. What had happened between Carmiara and Kengo in the light-dark space was beyond his comprehension. After her return, the worst of her madness had abated, though she still surprised them sometimes. Whoosh! Two streams of dark energy struck without warning. Before either of them could react, chains of shadow coiled around them, binding them in place. Woke up 21 years earlier? Ha, me? I woke up a whole 100 years earlier. Hudra's voice chimed from the dark. Hudra, what are you doing? Dagon demanded, incredulous. The answer's obvious. I betrayed you. Hudra's tone was flat, amused. He stroked his blade. Dark sorcery. How would you know this technique? Dagon asked. Carmiara's face tightened. This was a spell she alone of the trio should know. Of course I learned it from you, you foolish woman. I would never have cursed you like that otherwise, Hudra sneered. In the end, the me from 30 million years ago misjudged you. But in the century before you two woke, I devoured many planetary life forms and built up power in secret. And you two were injured, which made it easy. Oh, and speaking of Triga's side, there's a treasure hunter planet I remember tasting very well. He snapped his fingers. The dark energy bound in the chains began to flow out, siphoning into Hudra's body. I can't just devour you outright. I still need someone to draw the other's attention. He toyed with the corner of his lip with mock elegance. The sorcery surged. Dagon and Carmiara howled in pain as the corrupt energy raged through them. Crimson flared in their eyes, and their self-awareness began to fade. Make a scene. The bigger the commotion, the better. Hudra waved his hand, and the two were swallowed by a black mist wormhole. Usurel has already awakened. I'll go look for that flower, too. His silhouette vanished. Planet Juron. This looks like a spell that stimulates inner darkness and anger. Like a chaos virus, Cosmos said, fists clenching at the sight. He had no time to assist the afflicted elsewhere. Juron had its own crisis. Its golden teleport gates split open as dozens of Absolution soldiers marched out in unison, all radiating killing intent. They were even planning to commandeer the local monsters. According to Lord Tartarus, this is Ultraman Cosmos, the high-level fusion material for Legend and Saga, one soldier bellowed. For the future of the kingdom, eliminate him. Cosmos blinked. High-level fusion material? What an odd honorific. With Justice called away on a mission by Drashin, Cosmos was the only one left to stand. Golden energy orbs struck like meteor showers, engulfing him. Despite the flames, Cosmos stood unscathed, expression blank. No fear, no rage, no killing intent, only cold silence. A giant halo manifested behind him, a sign of imminent transformation. You leave me no choice, he said quietly. Space garrison. Zeta saw Hudra's betrayal on the broadcast and grew frantic. He begged to go help Triga, but Hikari held him back. Zeta, you can't go. Why? Because this is a broadcast. That doesn't mean its timeline matches ours. Hikari's tone was exasperated. Read more, he thought, but he lowered his voice to explain. Time flows differently across universes, even between planets. If you go now, you could end up in a completely different timeline. In Triga's universe, you've already been on Earth a long time and even have a human host. Zeta's worry quieted to a small, helpless silence. He wasn't trying to be dramatic. He was only concerned about his future brother. Hikari breathed easier. Zero had just left for a mission, so the duty of watching over the little boy fell to Hikari and Mebius. Even if Zero tried to interfere, without someone on the King's level, crossing between space-times and years wouldn't help much. The King, mysterious and strategic, wouldn't meddle in a warrior's fate lightly. Hikari glanced at Mebius, who looked distracted. What's wrong? Nothing, Mebius said. I was just communicating with my human host. Oh, Kiana? What did she ask? Tell me, I'd like to hear. Hikari's curiosity was piqued. It was rare for Mebius to have a human host. She asked, like Zeta, whether since it's a live broadcast she could go help. And you said? I told her what you said about different time flows. And? She didn't understand. Hikari sighed. Of course she didn't. She also asked if you'd be willing to send a transformation device to her universe. A girl named Bronya is very interested in your tech. Hikari's eyebrows rose. Triga space-time. 3 days earlier, Yuna had overused Usarel's power in the fight against Carrieloid 3 and fallen into a coma. She had only recently awakened and was still weak. Kengo bandaged his wounds and, as usual, tended the Ruruyi flower. Since regaining his memories, his obsession with that plant had deepened. He couldn't wait to show Carmiera it in bloom. Kengo, dark giants are attacking! Prepare to sortie! Captain Tatsumi's voice crackled over the comms. Kengo's pupils tightened. Dark giants? He sprinted to the command room, praying it wasn't who he feared. The monitor showed 2 towering figures rampaging through the city, and a chill ran cold through him. Carmiera? Dagon? What the? Elite Victory Team, deploy! Stop the Dark Giants, Captain Tatsumi ordered. The Nascender flipped direction and sped for the battlefield, streets filled with fleeing people. TPU defense teams pushed forward in waves to cover evacuations. Dagon, eyes bloodshot, trampled the ground as if in a daze. Hudra's plan was simple: cause as much destruction as possible to draw the Elite Victory Team. Electric arcs burst, crawling over Dagon's body. He looked down to see a young human boy, Akito, firing a hypergun into which an Alicking Ultra X key had been inserted, the weapon firing in rapid succession. The defense team of this world can use monster power too? Daichi exclaimed. Yes, but their method differs from Sayo's. They use keys to augment firearms, X explained. Daichi admired the ingenuity and thought of Dr. German. Akito still seemed young compared to that mind. The dark energy maddened Dagon, but as he focused on Akito, a flicker of recognition hit him. Another face intruded into his mind, Yuna. The savage bloodlust in his eyes dimmed. Since meeting her, he developed an unusual interest in human courage and bonds. He hadn't meant to slaughter these small humans, a thought that startled him. What am I doing? Gripping his head, he tried to push the chaos back. Outside the city, Carmiera moved far more slowly. Compared to Dagon's destructive spree, she retreated, feet heavy, moving away from the center of the carnage. It wasn't that she cared for humans, she simply didn't want to fight him any longer. Damn you, Hudra, just wait, she hissed. The dark sorcery writhed like a living thing, trying to seize her mind. Carmiera specialized in resisting such spells, but stripped of power, her defenses were weakening. Still, within her chest, a tiny cluster of warm light pulsed, guarding her last sliver of consciousness. This is Triga's light, she murmured. She remembered the light Kengo had sent when she almost stabbed him in the light-dark space. Back then, her mind had been a whirl, and she had not noticed. Hudra had been smug and oblivious to the light hidden deep inside her. Now, unexpectedly, that small glow was the only thing keeping herself together, buying her time before the darkness swallowed her. The crimson glare in her eyes flared. Perhaps at the next breath she would join Dagon in madness. Then she heard a voice, clear and close. His voice. How pathetic, she thought, embarrassed by how much she still wanted to hear him despite her vows. Hudra's taunts hissed at her in her mind. How ironic. Mortal enemies are making up quickly. He lied to you. The one who betrayed and sealed you 30 million years ago wouldn't feel guilty. Light and darkness cannot coexist. He won't come back. The dark sorcery repeated its poisonous litany, but the next moment another voice cut through, shattering those curses. It wasn't a hallucination. Carmiera looked up, startled. Her eyes stung. A brilliant golden light tore the gloom apart, streaking like a meteor. Within it flew a figure she both recognized and found strangely changed. "Kengo," she whispered when the voice reached her. "Kengo," he said, approaching. "Carmiera, leader, you've cried so many times. I came because I want to see the Ruru Yi bloom and let you see it with your own eyes. Maybe its power can wipe those tears away and bring back your true smile." Those words, spoken 3 days ago, returned to her like a tide. Carmiera froze. Millions of years of waiting had carried her to this moment. The man she had longed for, hated and raged at across countless ages, had turned back to her at last. Kengo's eyes shone with a brilliant starlight. 30 million years later, for the first time, that light reached into her lonely, dark heart. 131. The last game. Whoosh! The giant of light tore through the clouds and raised his hand, unleashing a golden restorative beam. The light entered Carmiera's body, washing away the dark spell Hudra had left on her. The crimson in her eyes slowly faded. The moment the curse broke, exhaustion hit her at once. She lost her footing and collapsed. Rumble. The ground cracked open inch by inch, and 2 grotesque giant shadows rose up, roaring at them, Hudra's specially recolored monsters. Ant monster, Arindo. Beetle monster, Conazirin. Hudra, so it was you! Triga recognized the unmistakable blue hue on the creatures and realized this was one of Hudra's contingencies. Ever since 30 million years ago, Hudra could summon monsters bearing his color when bored. Anger flared in Triga. He pulled out the eternal shining Ultra X key and charged. 10 seconds later, the 2 monsters were gone, vanished without even a scream. Triga Universe. Daigo watched Triga in his shining eternal form, stunned. Ho, what immense power! That level rivaled his second fight against Kyriloid. Why don't I have this form? He had 4 kinds of weapons, just counting the light arms and slasher. Jealousy pricked him for the first time. He felt the urge to check his skill list and arsenal, but Kengo's situation stayed foremost in his mind. On the screen, Carmiera, breathless and disheveled after the curse was lifted, sounded surprised. "I've known you for so long. How did I never know you had this skill?" "This is something I learned from Senior Tiga when I met him," Triga said. The beam he'd used was the cell conversion beam, a healing, purifying restoration technique similar to Cosmos's full moon rectification. It was one of the skill cards the old man juggler had dug up and casually taught Kengo. As counterparts across parallel spacetimes, the two had shared abilities before. Skills transferred between them in an instant. "Carmiera!" Triga called gently. She'd been staring into space, and only Kengo's voice snapped her back. "What do you want?" she asked coldly. Triga held out a hand to the dazed Carmiera. "I'm glad you're okay. I still need to stop Dagon." She froze at the offered hand, hesitant. Then, as if testing whether it was real, she placed her palm in his and held on tightly. Triga pulled her to her feet, then, remembering old Max's posture with Mizuki, lifted her and flew toward the next destination. "Once a dark spell takes full effect, it's hard to dispel unless the caster removes it or dies," Carmiera said, still uncomfortable. "If that's true, how are you still conscious?" Triga met her eyes. "Because of the light you left behind." Carmiera opened her mouth, but it shut into a cold snort. "That spell was originally mine. He only stole it, so I have ways to resist it. It hasn't fully taken hold." "Is that so?" Triga let out a breath, both relieved and puzzled. Carmiera felt a sudden blush and turned her face away. "Yes. Kingdom Universe." Trigger stroked his chin, intrigued. "Oh, how strange. The fusion of light and darkness. A rare ultra-warrior." Thinking it through, he could see a path to power here. He had once been the Trigger of the Land of Light's original universe. Taro had sought to embody light by purging darkness, and they had always ended up at the same place. Over a long journey across the cosmos, Trigger had changed his mind. Light and darkness lost their value. Only nihility and chaos remained. He didn't want to repeat those mistakes now, not out of fear, but because he was waiting for an opportunity from the kingdom. Until then, he'd slack off and watch the broadcasts. After all, he was an anti-overtime advocate, no matter the tregear, that never changed. On the Nascender, Hudra emerged from the black mist and padded into Kengo's room. He noticed the Ruruyi flower that hadn't bloomed yet and sneered. Why does it look like plastic? Is this the legendary Ruruye? The thought of Kengo's perpetual smile, smile amused him. Triga-like smiles, especially Carmiera's, so I'll help. The dark energies of Dagon and Carmiera inside him felt restless, hard to control. No matter. I'll capture Usurel and open the Eternal Core ruins later. He strolled into another room, the Ruruyi tucked under his arm. Yuna hadn't joined the ground battle because she was weak. When Hudra entered, her face went white and she pushed the alarm. Usurel, come with me, she said. Hudra waved a curl of black mist and carried her off. Stop! Captain Tatsumi and the others burst in with guns raised, but the room was empty. Yuna's gone. Tatsumi clenched his fist and contacted his superior, Mitsukuni. Boss, your daughter's been kidnapped. In the city, Dagon and Akito eyed each other in silence. The crimson in Dagon's eyes faded. Huh? Already sober? That was easy. Was Hudra's spell weak? Dagon scratched his head, bewildered. He'd never understood the spell fully. Carmiera had never used it on him or Hudra. Now, in human size, he kept his distance from Akito. I didn't expect to be controlled by Hudra's spell because of a moment's carelessness, he said, remorseful. Aren't you companions? Akito asked, gun still in hand. Yes, companions. Dagon sighed. Maybe that's why I'm drawn to humans. They don't have overwhelming power, but they do have a fierce heart to protect their companions. That moved me deeply. Humans lack what we dark giants possess. I'm impressed by their belief. It was Yuna, you, and other human adversaries who made me realize this. He turned to leave. If so, why not join you to stop Hudra? Akito called after him. At that moment, Kengo and Carmiera arrived. Dagon glanced at them, something like conflict in his eyes, then looked as if he were also thinking of Yuna. Do I have the right? He asked quietly. Dagon wanted to join the humans and taste the friendship he'd missed for so long. Long ago, he'd often taken human form to spar with hot-blooded men. He felt guilty about damaging the city, but thinking about Hudra, he sought atonement. He no longer needed to seize the Eternal Core and destroy everything. These beings deserved a future. He nodded and turned to Kengo. But before that, let's settle something from 30 million years ago. I don't want any regrets. 30 million years ago? Kengo asked, puzzled. Trega! Dagon pointed at him. As former companions, you still owe me a duel. Torn between yearning for human emotion and loyalty to the dark giants, Dagon wanted this duel as a final farewell to darkness. Kengo was about to agree when Carmiera cut in. Your duel can wait, she said, eyes flashing with murder. First, let that bastard Hudra pay. Zeta Spacetime, Juggler chuckled. Yar, how strange. How is it strange? Yuka asked. Hudra feels like a villain who actually gets things done, Juggler said with a grin. And Carmiera now, she reminds me of my old self, the sort who would shout, Triga, I'll never forgive you. The memory made him wince, recalling his own embarrassing past lines. Kai, this is my zillionth time helping you. Triga Spacetime, Eternal Core ruins. Hudra pointed his sword and a crackling arc of electricity jumped from it. Usurel, forced out of Yuna by the threat, was too weak to resist. Hudra snapped his fingers. Usurel's energy was drawn uncontrollably toward the ruins. White photon energy erupted and opened the sealed gate. A golden portal yawned. Hudra smiled. Then, Usurel, let me send you on your final journey. This is my last mercy. You won't have to see humanity's tragic end. He raised his blade and hacked down at Yuna. The sword was halfway through when a streak of white light flashed. The blade was deflected, grazing Yuna's cheek, and clanged into the ground, sending sparks flying. She's my best friend, you bastard. A slightly irreverent voice called out, and light bullets hammered Hudra back. Ignis descended on a broom made of Guerubasa feathers and planted himself between Yuna and Hudra. Earth cannot follow the same path as Lashuria Star, Ignis said. Today, I avenge my homeland. He readied the dark trigger and stared coldly at Hudra. Ho, you want revenge? Hudra struck a flamboyant pose, cocky. Bearing the power of 3 dark giants, how could a mere treasure hunter defeat him? But I refuse, Ignis growled. One thing I love is telling self-righteous types, no! Hudra laughed and taunted. For now, let's play one last game with you. 132. Evil flowers bloom everywhere. Ignis's revenge didn't last long. He hadn't expected Hudra, now fed on Carmiera's and Dagon's energy, to be so much stronger. He couldn't hold him alone. The only consolation was that he managed to stall long enough for Kengo and the others to arrive. "You came quickly. A pleasant surprise," Hudra said with a polite bow. "To ambush me, Hudra? You've grown bold," Carmiera snapped, her light whip cracking with murderous intent. Hudra laughed. With a casual snap of his fingers, dark energy flared from the void. The shadowy curse that had been leaving Dagon suddenly reasserted itself. Scarlet light returned to Dagon's eyes, and he began to tremble. "Oh, did you really think you'd broken free on your own? Idiots. I allowed it." Hudra's amusement faltered when he realized Carmiera seemed unaffected. He had no way of knowing what had happened in the light and dark space 3 days ago, how Kengo's light had preserved the last rag of Carmiera's sanity, and how, with the cell conversion beam Tiga had taught them, the dark curse was finally dispelled. Shrugging it off, Hudra said, "Never mind, let Dagon have his fun." He started to fly deeper into the eternal core. Triga and the others moved to pursue when Dagon, now under Hudra's renewed control, spread his arms, gathering energy above and below. "Wait, that stance is exactly like my Zestium beam." Zeta stared in confusion, but the next instant he realized this beam was far stronger than the version he knew. Dagon struck the ground. Fiery shockwaves tore through the earth in layers, sweeping like a hurricane, surging like a tidal wall of crimson energy toward everyone. Carmiera met it with a sapphire light whip lash, using speed and force to blunt the wave. With her other hand, she cast a counter curse, trying to weaken Hudra's hold on Dagon. "You go after him. This idiot Dagon. I'll try to wake him," she ordered. Akito, carrying the unconscious Yuna, reunited with the Nascender crew just as Triga and Ignis exchanged a look and dove into the eternal core. "Kengo, I have to confess something," Ignis said as they ran. "What?" Kengo glanced over. "If circumstances were different, I might have been the one who tampered with the ruins, who opened the gate and took Yuna," Ignis admitted. "The power here is intoxicating. Whoever controls it could remake the world. Even the absolutions are tempted. I once thought of rebuilding my homeland, reviving my people, taking revenge on Hudra. But the core's power is too vast to predict, too dangerous to gamble with. I won't sacrifice Earth's future for my own selfishness. The past is past. Thank you, Kengo." Before they could pursue further, the blue figure near the core, Hudra, spoke. "You're too late." His hand plunged into the eternal core, but almost immediately his face changed. "What's wrong? Why won't this energy obey me?" Dark power poured from his fingertips, the core's force filling him and torturing his body. He screamed as he began to bloat and warp. "Using a direct beam, it will affect the core." "Then we go in physically," Kengo and the others charged. A wall of golden and black energy slammed outward like a tsunami, driving them back. From that storm-like light, a monstrous shape rose. Hearts sank across the battlefield and among millions watching the feed. A hideous, alien evil god had formed, its body a dark, armored shell bristling with writhing tentacles. The oppressive aura made the stars seem like dust to be toyed with in his palm. The evil god, Megalotiga, had been born. Darkness thickened, blotting the sky. "It feels a bit like Gadanathor," Kurenai Guy and Juggler said, in 2 different corners of the universe, almost in unison. Hudra's voice, hoarse and coughing, came from within the thing. He explained that the eternal core didn't reject light or dark, but its immeasurable energy, when it met a space-time source, could cause anomalies. The wild dark energies from Carmiera and Dagon, energies Hudra hadn't fully contained, met the core and birthed this new existence. "Perfect," Hudra has said, "more convenient to devour life." Megalotiga's tentacles erupted from the ground and bound Dark Trigger. The giant struggled, but the grip held. Ignis spat in contempt and grabbed a writhing limb to buy time. "Ancient light, shine across the universe," Triga cried, raising the shining eternity key. Wielding the ring armament and the slasher of light, he unleashed the 2-sword style he had used against the extinction Orochi. Golden and blue sword chi slashed at Megalotiga, metal on stone ringing through the ruins as if to tear them down. For a moment the watchers held their breath. The strike should have been devastating. But it failed to even scratch the evil god. Kengo's pupils tightened at the sight. "Surprised?" Hudra sneered. Tentacles wrapped Triga fast, Black lightning crackled down across his head and horns, dark megalo thunder. Triga howled and was flung aside. The bound Dark Trigger was suddenly enshrouded in a blood-like mist. His dark energy drained steadily into the evil god. In an instant, Dark Trigger reverted to his human form, Ignis, who fell like a ragged kite. Trigga staggered to his feet, soreness and confusion flooding him. Why had his attack had no effect? He couldn't win in this state. He had to protect Ignis. He made to retreat and take Ignis back to the Nascender for treatment. Not so fast, Trigga, Hudra said, extending a tentacle. He revealed a small white blossom, Ruruye, flower. A little present. Triga clenched his fists. Hudra injected the flower with contaminated eternal core energy. The bloom shuddered, its petals opened and golden pollen began to drift out, pouring into the air and into the ground. In an instant, it spread beyond the ruins and into the cities. Wherever the pollen drifted, flowers of the same kind rapidly took root and bloomed. A mist of golden dust rode the winds. Evacuees breathed it in without noticing. On a stretcher, an injured TPU member groaned about his pain. I was once a brave investigator, until I took an arrow to the knee. Ouch. Then, eyes glazing, he smiled as if seeing a treasure. He forgot his wounds, forced himself to stand, and reached toward nothing, as if something precious hovered there. How is this like Gijera? Hori cried. It shouldn't be, Captain Aruma said, frowning. Kengo had once described the Ruruye as a true flower of hope, not a dreamlike illusion like Gijera. Why did this look the same? Because the evil god has polluted the Ruruye, Daigo said coldly. He watched humans already affected and realized the truth. It's not just illusion, something is draining their life force. They turned to the affected people and saw it, flesh losing color, pallor spreading as if stone were creeping in. The life in their faces faded into ash gray. The victims were petrifying. Hudra's power was feeding on them. Stone statues with faint smiles began appearing across Earth. Kengo still didn't know what was unfolding. Daigo thought of the young man who loved to smile and worried for him. Strong magnetic field detected, Neri called. On the command room monitors, a patch of grass appeared, familiar, unmistakable. In an instant, the Guts members realized they were seeing Jera's equivalent in their world. Because they'd been forewarned and prepared, the TPC could act fast. Daigo held the image of the smiling young man on the screen, steeled himself with the thought of Kengo's hope for the future, and set off to face his mission. 133. The Posture of Truth. The Ruru-Yi are blooming. Kengo Manaka watched the blossoms he had tended for so long, pain written across his face. The flowers hadn't opened fully, but their pollen had almost certainly already affected people outside. Having seen the power of Jera in the Tiga spacetime, Kengo felt a cold premonition settle over him. Dark Trigger energy has been absorbed, only a small trace remains, Ignis said. Whoosh! As they spoke, the evil god's tentacles struck again. I didn't say you could leave, Hudra sneered. A bolt of crimson lightning shot through the entrance and struck the tentacles. Carmiara had arrived. I can't undo Dagon's spell. All I can do is forcibly drain his energy until he can't fight, she said, looking at the evil god with apprehension. To break the control entirely, we'd have to defeat him. Oh my, you're really something, Hudra laughed. Kengo's attention snapped to the effect of Carmiara's attack. It had damaged the evil god. The hit hadn't been huge, but it was real, unquestionably visible. Why? Kengo replayed the scene in his head, over and over. When Carmiara had caught his hand earlier, he'd left behind a tiny pulse of light inside her. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it had been preserved. Whenever she used her power now, she carried that sliver of light energy with her. Could that be why her attack could harm the evil god? On the deck of the Nascender, the unconscious, shrunken Dagon lay bound nearby. Akito had warned that if Dagon woke while still controlled, they might have no choice but to throw Brother Gongzi into the sea. The TPU members stood together, watching the evil god rising from the ground and spreading its corruption over the earth. Thanks to Yusarel's protection, they had not been turned into stone statues. Mitsukuni had even personally experienced the Gijera incident in the Tiga spacetime. Under the emergency plan, TPU still had a fair number of effective fighters left, but compared to facing Megalo Tiga, their job was mostly to shield humans who had not yet lost all life signs. That was why Megalo Tiga had gone into the sea, to tear through humanity's last defensive line. Kengo, will this really work? Akito asked, uncertain. I wasn't mistaken. It will, Kengo said, his voice colder than it had ever been. On the way back, he had seen the people affected by the Ruruye, their life energy being siphoned by Hudra, their bodies turning to stone. They died in a dreamlike trance, smiles frozen on their faces. Those smiles were like blades that kept carving into Kengo's heart. The Ruruye he had cared for so much had become a tool Hudra used to destroy humanity. Guilt pressed down on him harder than ever. Ignis, he said. Ignis pulled out the hypergun and leveled it at him. The Ultra X key still holds Dark Trigger's power. It's yours again, Triga. I can't unleash its full strength, but you can use it. Dark energy unfurled and flowed into Kengo's hand. The Ultra X key, engraved with light and dark Triga, appeared. Thank you, Ignis. Humph, you must win, Triga. A strong wind lifted Kengo's dark hair. He fixed his gaze and walked to the front of the deck. Are you going alone? Someone called from behind him. Kengo didn't answer. What? Planning to abandon me again? Carmiara stepped up beside him, sneering as she looked toward the evil god that pursued the Nascender. You should know I never let traitors go. Not Hudra, and not you either. We'll settle our score after we defeat him. Kengo felt there was nothing left to say. More than anything, guilt made it impossible to refuse Carmiara. He slipped the Ultra X key into the hypergun, opened the barrel, and leaped from the ship. A pair of lights descended from the sky and halted before the evil god. Light and dark powers merged into one form, true Triga. His composite silhouette gained black markings along the body, a mature, elegant touch layered over his familiar shape. What is that form? Light and dark together? How is that possible? A commentator cried. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Wow, that looks amazing. He even has eyeliner. Countless viewers stared in disbelief. Until now, few had ever seen a righteous Ultra Warrior wielding dark power in the Kingdom universe. Trigger's voice trembled with agitation. An Ultra with both light and dark existed. And it was chaos. Kurenai Guy's snort masked other emotions. He remembered his own struggle controlling Orb Origin, the near disaster when he'd lost his temper. Seeing true Triga only made him hungrier to understand and develop new forms. Hudra stared at true Triga in utter disbelief. With a crackle of electricity across its body, the evil god bared its fangs and lunged at the newcomer. True Triga flickered into a streak of black and gold light and dove down. The clash of light and dark energy canceled out the evil god's lightning. And in the next heartbeat, Triga's fist landed square on Hudra's face. Boom! The evil god howled as sparks and a blinding explosion bloomed at the point of impact. It worked. It caused real damage. Countless people felt hope stir. With both light and dark energy, Triga's attacks could pierce Hudra's defenses. Kengo steadied himself and poured everything into the fight, hammering at Megalotiga's massive body. Not far away, Carmiara lashed out with her light whip, keeping the evil god's attention and drawing its fire. The old synergy between them returned, as if they had been back 30 million years together. Victory seemed to be tipping toward humanity. Is that all? You truly disappoint me, Hudra sneered. After a few exchanges, the evil god's laughter rang out and its body didn't seem much worse for wear. The alarm bells in True Triga's head blared. He pulled back hard. Boom! The sea roiled as countless tentacles erupted from the water. They braided together into a net and swept over Triga, binding him completely. A tremendous force slammed him down, and Triga, unable to break free, was hurled into the sea. When he resurfaced, before him lay a vast expanse of megalo thunder. Triga! Carmiara cried, wounded but unhesitating, and rushed toward him. In the space garrison, a buzz of shock rippled through the observers. They were evenly matched a moment ago. How did he get taken down so fast? Zeta thought, remembering the powerful foes he had faced recently, and resolving to train harder with Zero so he wouldn't be humiliated on Earth. The power gap between the two sides is still huge, Aguang said, shaking his head. Even mixing light and dark can't compensate for raw strength. Does that mean they'll lose? Another voice asked. Mebius's voice rose slowly over the worried murmur. You must believe in Triga. Making the impossible possible, that is what an Ultra Warrior does. Triga knew he couldn't defeat Megalotiga now. Pain radiated through his whole body as if it had reached bone, though his Ultraman form had no actual bones. and his chest and abdomen felt like they were being crushed. Kengo's head was heavy, and his strength was slipping away by the second. If he fell, the humans who had already been turned to stone and the ones who had not yet died, indeed, even the people on the moon and Mars, would be consumed by destruction. Tsk! A pained grunt from Carmiera came from in front of him. Hudra only grew more furious at their stubborn resistance. Thunder and tentacles lashed out in wave after wave, assaults piling atop one another. Still, Carmiera remained in front of Triga. True Triga forced himself up, pulled Carmiera behind him, and once again braced against the evil god's onslaught. He was still standing. He could still fight. That was enough. Boom! Another bolt of lightning struck Triga's face. Pain blurred into a constant, buzzing pressure in his skull. Good then, Hudra said, voice grim. If you insist, you can die together. I had planned to spare you, to beat you half to death, and then devour your light and darkness. But now, corpses are just as good. Dark clouds churned. A massive fluctuation of malignant energy gathered in Hudra's body, and blood-red lightning converged at the evil god's head tentacles. The oppressive power far outmatched every previous attack. We have to hold them, someone shouted. Inside the Nascender, Akito watched the terror of the attack and clenched Libut's Ultra X key in his hand. He knew even Libut's power might not be enough. Before he could lose hope, Yuna stepped forward and lifted the ring on her finger. Let me connect to the eternal core. I'll transmit power to Kengo. Wait, Mitsukuni cut her off, his face tight. 30 million years ago, Yusarel dissipated because she connected to the eternal core. Father. Yuna's voice didn't waver. Determination shone in her eyes. This is the only way. Mitsukuni, seeing how much his daughter had grown and how she had overcome her fear, remembered a story he had once been told. On another Earth I lived on, a similar disaster happened. The evil god Ganathor released a black mist that shrouded the world, and its minion Zoga ravaged the land. Even Tiga was defeated and turned to stone. In the end, it was the light of hope from countless humans that revived the petrified Tiga, bringing him to his shining form to defeat the evil god. But here, countless people are already statues. Where will the light of hope come from? If that's the problem, use another source, Akito proposed. We can use the Nascender as a conduit, connect to the eternal core through Yusarel, add the power the Absolute Clan lent us, and Libut's power too. Yuna had already begun. She reached out with her bloodline, calling to Yusarel in her heart. The ring flared with dazzling white light. Power of the eternal core, gather at the Nascender. For reasons that might have been self-preservation, the eternal core answered. Golden energy rose from the ruins and flowed toward the Nascender. In Yuna's mind, 1,000 images flashed. The faint lights of struggling humans and beings not yet petrified, the support of Earth itself, the soil, the sky, the seas, the ruins, even monsters. The pale glow of Ultraman Libut, as remembered in a light green Ultra X key, the light of the TPU members, and the power gathered from the Absolute Clan through the little golden bull. Many of those lights belonged to beings who did not even know Triga. They had no direct bond with him. It didn't matter. Their subconscious yearning for hope and refusal to surrender to destruction was enough. Now! Akito shouted. The Nascender, overloaded and shining golden, released its Naskanon. Countless energies converged into the beam, and it fired toward the two struggling giants. Facing the incoming doom, Triga planted his feet, arms outstretched. A golden arc of light bloomed from him, carrying both light and dark particles. Carmiera charged her dark energy at the same time. Swirling black lightning braided with a red destructive beam radiated from her fingertips. Dark megalo lightning, true Zeppelian ray, finger spark. Their attacks slammed together in a brief tug of war. For a moment it held, but the evil god's power was too great. The combined attack was pushed back visibly. The light began to lose ground. The buff on the right still can't beat the evil god? Someone muttered. The dark megalo lightning tore through the Zeppelian ray and Carmiera's spell, drove straight forward, and engulfed True Triga and Carmiera. It was Hudra's strongest blow, a darkness deeper than the universe itself, shattering, remorseless. Despair began to spread. In the last instant, Kengo sent a mental plea to Carmiera. Carmiera, go. I'll buy you time. She had a black mist space ability that might let her teleport away. It was a gamble under such an assault, But Kengo couldn't ask her to die with him. Shut up, she snapped through gritted teeth, cracks forming along her body. She was at her limit, but stubborn. I told you, I will never forgive you. Until I forgive you, you are not allowed to die. I will not die. Their final resistance was ripped apart by Hudra's lightning. Boundless darkness swallowed them. Then suddenly, Kengo felt an unprecedented warmth flood his heart. At the same time, the Nascanon's concentrated attack hit the pair, but the golden light seemed to vanish into the black mist. For a beat, it looked like the Nascender had failed. Spectators widened their eyes. Space began to tremble. Hudra watched the two figures consumed by black lightning and the Nascanon that had disappeared, and a strange unease pricked at him. He howled and struck with even greater force, but something unexpected happened. A light from another dimension appeared out of nowhere and blocked the lightning, buying the two time. This light did not seem to belong to the same reality. It was enormously powerful. Is that a Tiga from another dimension? Someone gasped. Hudra sneered. Compared to him, it would be nothing. He unleashed another wave of evil energy and broke through that light, only to find the two he had attacked were gone. Where they had been, a different presence had taken center. No matter how he struck, he couldn't shatter it. Worse, he couldn't even harm it. At the heart of the darkness, light bloomed, sacred, warm, boundless. Infinite golden light braided with darkness, and it tore Hudra's lightning to pieces. From between the two colored energies, a figure slowly emerged. This is True Triga? No, the power doesn't match either of them alone. Wait, do I see the power of the Absolute Clan? How is that possible? Tazi stared, surprised. The humans had said someone from the Absolute Clan's energy had been absorbed. Why? Was there a traitor? He frowned even as he studied the new power. Libubit in the Land of Light recognized his own glow and snorted. Humph, you even got a piece of this action. Impressive. Geno and Max, standing by, patted him on the shoulder. Kengo himself had no clear memory of how it happened. He only knew that when he opened his eyes, he was still in true Triga form, but now he wore a golden-yellow light armor that covered him. He felt tremendous power flooding him, more than his previous true form. It dawned on him slowly. He and Carmiara had merged. In that light and dark space, he stood at one end while Carmiara floated at the other. Carmiara, in her human form, looked around with the same bewilderment. Triga, she murmured. Did we combine? Kengo blinked. Carmiara phrased things in ways that were sometimes awkward, but the fact was unambiguous. Their energies had fused. The armor he bore now was the fusion of Triga, Carmiara, the Eternal Core, the Absolute Clan, the light of ancient ages, Libut's light, and the light of friendship and bonds. Mr. Daigo had been right. On the road to becoming a hero, you meet trustworthy companions. Anyone can become light, but alone you cannot shine as brightly. A strange mix of longing and resolve stirred in Kengo's chest. He glanced at Carmiara. This was not the moment for other feelings. First, they had to finish the evil god. Hudra's reaction to the dazzling golden true Triga was fury and humiliation. He had always prided himself on elegance. Witnessing this opulent golden monstrosity filled him with shame and rage. He shrieked and lashed with his tentacles in a brutal, unmatched assault. But true Triga no longer found it irresistible. He formed his right hand into a blade and casually sliced Hudra's tentacles off one by one. Sparks flew. Before the evil god could respond properly, a barrage of attacks from the merged hero struck. Threads of darkness ran within the bright yellow energy as divine power tore through Hudra's body. Wounds bloomed all over him, forcing him into retreat. Pure, unadorned energy was cutting the evil god down. Hudra felt the power he thought he had gained from the Eternal Core turn on him. The energy was being purified by the merged hero. No, the Eternal Core itself seemed to be answering them. Horror gripped Hudra, but there was no time for that. True Triga's assault intensified. The gold and black composite flashed, a blur of fists, a long dazzling streak of light smashing into Hudra's face. The golden energy penetrated and churned through him, as if crushing his very being. Kicks, chops, beam strikes, the onslaught never stopped. Resistance was futile. No, this is impossible, Hudra shrieked. I had the power of the Eternal Core, I clearly. His rant cut off as True Triga's timer flashed with a blinding gold. The patterns on his body vanished. Pure, infinite energy condensed into a titanic vortex. The composite lights, the hero's light, the strongmans, the aerial spirits, the deep light of darkness, the radiant light of eternity, and countless others, all converged. The pressure reached a critical point. Triga brought his hands together. The true timer flash shattered the barriers of space and pierced the darkness that had blanketed the world, cutting outward until it struck the universe itself. In an instant, it slammed into Megalotiga. Boom! The evil god's entire body was swallowed by the sphere of light. Sparks and lightning erupted and streamed from him. His shriek died as he was consumed. The black mist that covered the earth tore apart. The sun's warm rays flooded the disaster-stricken planet. Support fleets from the moon and Mars felt the monumental energy shift and the dissipation of the evil god's essence and moved in. Spectators cheered. Victory tasted like a festival. We did it! Standing on the right wins beam clashes. Laughter and relief swept through the crowd. Back in the Tiga universe, Daigo, who had been off dealing with Gijera, exhaled a long suppressed breath and allowed himself a smile at Kengo's growth. Next to him, though, Shinjo collapsed into another hallucination, a sign that Gijera's pollen still plagued him. The battle ended. Under sunlight breaking through the clouds, True Triga slowly disintegrated. The enormous expenditure of energy took its toll. Carmera fainted as she dissolved. She was alive, if exhausted. In the moment, before she lost consciousness, she reverted to human size. Kengo scooped her up and carried her back to the Nascender, handing her over to the others for care. Brother Gongzi, who had been under the spell's sway, came back to himself, dazed and groggy. Kengo and Ignis set out to search for Hudra. When the evil god vanished, a faint blue light flew toward the city. Kengo understood that Hudra was most likely dead from the earlier attack, but prudence demanded they check. In the ruined city, Hudra had reverted to his original form and collapsed weakly to the ground, his body beginning to dissipate. He was at the very end of his strength, gasping. Still, when he saw Kengo and Ignis approaching, he forced himself to rise. "It's over, Hudra," Kengo said, gripping the Guts Spark lens, the shining rod in his hand. Hudra laughed suddenly. His laugh was hollow and cold, and it made Kengo's skin prickle. 135. To those who believe in smiles. "Oh my Triga, do you really think it's over?" Hudra's smile was crazed and mocking. He extended a hand and gestured toward the humans turned to stone around them. "You are not Tiga. Your past was the same as ours, a dark giant, stained with blood. You never had any real bond with the people of this world." Kengo Manaka flinched at the words. What if Hudra was right? What if even if the evil god were defeated, the outcome wouldn't change? He had failed to protect these people. He hadn't brought light to humanity the way Tiga had when he defeated Gijera. All that remained were countless lifeless stone figures. A cold wind blew, and Hudra's form continued to dissipate. His grin grew more unrestrained. "It's a pity I lost to you," he crowed, savoring each stab of triumph. "But for old time's sake, Triga, this is my gift to you. Look around. Let these human statues die with smiles frozen on their faces. Do you like this scene?" Everyone was smiling. Kengo looked around at the stone faces carved into smiles, and his chest tightened. This wasn't the smile he wanted. This wasn't the future he'd hoped for. Tears ran down his face, plain for Hudra to see. "Why are you crying, Kengo Manaka?" Hudra laughed as if something exquisite had occurred. He spread his fingers at the corners of his mouth and forced a mad grin, mocking Kengo's own actions. "You should! Smile! Ha!" Hudra next turned his gaze to Ignis. "What a pity I couldn't finish you, to devour their lives at the height of their joy, to consume all living beings on this planet, like I did to your home world. How wonderful that would have been." "Blah, blah, blah. Are you done or not?" Ignis snapped. He raised a hand and fired a beam of light, hitting Hudra, the final blow that made him fall apart completely. Even as the villain dissolved, his laughter lingered on the wind. "Kengo!" Ignis stepped forward to steady the swaying Kengo Manaka, but Kengo gently shook his head, gesturing him away. Memories rose unbidden. Fighting alongside Tiga to defeat the Kyriloid, the sight of Daigo facing Gijera. He finally understood something he had tried to deny. He could never be Tiga, could never be Daigo. Their bond with humanity, the way light and people were tied together in their lives, was deeper than his. When Hudra had said humanity's bond with him wasn't as deep as with Tiga, Kengo could not deny it. But he had been told by Daigo, Libut, Yuna, his mother. They had all told him. You are you. You are Kengo Manaka, and you are Triga. You are light, you are human. You have your own duties to fulfill. That thought steadied him. He lifted his face to the sky, as if speaking to the senior he had admired from another space-time. Tiga, he said softly, if our worlds are similar, it's because my space-time was born of people wanting you and loving you. I may never be you, but even someone like me is trusted and cheered on, and has companions who can't be replaced. For their smiles, the vibration in the air intensified. The Eternal Core's runaway influence continued to spread. Kengo looked at the frozen human faces and shook his head. But these smiles, this future, is not what I want. Let me rewrite it, even if it costs me everything. At that moment, the Nascender arrived and TPU members crowded around. Their faces showed fear when they realized what Kengo meant. The Eternal Core is unstable. How is this possible? Yuna said, hearing Yusarel's call through her ring. She met Ignis's gaze and saw his resolve. Kengo handed Ignis the recondensed dark trigger key. Ignis stood stunned for a beat, then understood. A complex of emotions crossed his face before a genuine smile appeared. Don't worry, the promise between us is the most sacred in the universe, he said, though the sadness in his eyes didn't hide. What are you? What exactly are you going to do? Akito's voice trembled. His hands reached out as if to stop him. Only I, who have touched the Eternal Core, can stabilize its runaway state. Only I can restore those who turn to stone. Kengo's smile was small and tired but steady. Don't worry about me. I'll be back once I've brought the core back to normal. During that time, Ignis will take my place and help protect the Earth. He looked at the unconscious Carmiara and Dagon. His usual optimism cracked. He was unsettled as he addressed the red-eyed crowd. He forced a grin, though his voice shook. All right, everyone, smile, don't cry. Tears pooled in the corners of his eyes even as he mimed a smile, placing his fingers at the corner of his mouth. I told you, I'll be back soon. Soon. Akito couldn't hold back. He grabbed Kengo's collar and sobbed. Kengo met his gaze. There were 1,000 things unsaid and only one came out. I'm sorry, Akito. I said it's so annoying. Akito cried, clutching him. I don't want to smile sending you off. He knew, though, the truth of what Kengo meant. His trembling hands finally fell uselessly to his sides. If you want to see me smile, then come back soon. Kengo's lips trembled. Okay, he whispered. He nodded to the group and turned. He glanced one last time at Carmiara and Dagon and looked steadily at Carmiara's face, wanting to store that image in his heart. I'm sorry, he thought. I failed you again. He raised his hand. The Triga spark flared. The giant of light, battered and burning, strode into the horizon and vanished. Space Garrison. Some watched in silence, understanding what Kengo intended. A warrior's destination, a hero's funeral, the first Ultraman said quietly. Zeta frowned, confused by the path his friend had chosen, and a helpless sorrow rose in him. Zero, having just returned, glanced at him with concern. Daigo, in Tiga's space-time, saw the scene and felt the loneliness that choice would bring for Kengo. You, who promised to meet me in the future, you must come back alive, he thought. At the Eternal Core, Kengo looked at the golden, radiant construct before him. All other thoughts fell away. Senior Tiga had been called the Light of Hope because he carried humanity's expectations. Kengo could not, and did not need to, become Tiga, but he could burn himself to protect the light of hope that lived in people's hearts. That would be enough. He stepped forward and placed his hand against the core. He didn't know exactly when he had decided to give everything, only that he had. Light swelled inside him, pouring outward. As Zamusha had before him, his body began to dematerialize. Warm motes of light drifted into the Eternal Core. As payment, Eternal Core, please help me one last time. This is my final request, he whispered. The giant core thrummed as if answering. Kengo felt his life and light pour into it more rapidly. Golden beams, sharp as blades, seared through him, converging and weaving until the agony of being torn apart became unbearable. Then, a sound, a deep hum, rose. A golden pillar of light shot up from the ruins and wrapped the planet in radiance. From gaps in the clouds, little points of starlight began to fall, like guiding beacons. That stardust was the light of hope itself. As if alive, it flew toward every smiling stone statue and merged into their hearts. The mottled stone began to fade. Stopped hearts started beating again. One by one, the statues transformed back into people beneath the glow. Pure white flowers bloomed at their feet, the half-open Ruru-ye they had seen before, but now whole. This was the true Ruru-ye, the universe's most precious flower, untouched by the evil god's darkness, the true flower of hope. It swayed and radiated warm energy, restoring what had been broken. People woke, embraced one another among the sea of flowers, and wept with joy at hope's return. But among the crowd, one figure was missing, the young man who had dreamed of this very scene, who had given his life to protect these smiles. Alas, scenes like this are hard to weave into the real world, and there aren't many readers left now. Like with Zas before, I'll try to finish it in a single stretch. Going to sleep. By the way, it's not a bad ending, I just can't finish writing it right now. Trigger Man, open your eyes, I am... Triga sacrificed himself. He was the only one who could stop the Eternal Core from going out of control. There was nothing else to be done. No, I just became a double Tiga fan, and now only Tiga is left. What about Edelgar? Do you understand? Speaking of Tiga fans, the biggest fangirl is still unconscious. Who knows how she'll feel when she wakes up and finds out Kengo has passed? Across countless screens, viewers watched Kengo give everything, the light of hope within him, so humanity could survive. Their grief rippled through the broadcast. As Brother Man had said, this was Triga's fate as a warrior, the kind of choice all Ultras sometimes face. There are always things a hero must protect that are more important than their own life. In Tiga's space-time, Daigo closed his eyes, his expression unreadable, but his trembling lashes betrayed the pain he felt. Kengo, didn't we promise to meet again? You said you weren't good enough, that you could never be Tiga like me. But you were. You became a one-of-a-kind Triga, Kengo Mananaka. In the end, you protected all of humanity with that smile of yours. Daigo whispered across the gap of time to the young man who had always admired him. Will Triga die? He asked the void. At the space garrison, watching the live broadcast in the sky, Zeta felt a hollowness in his chest. He wiped his eyes and bowed his head. Zero was about to ask why he was crying, but instead he simply patted Zeta's shoulder. Not necessarily, Zero said softly. From the highest point of the space garrison came the king's voice. The arrangements of fate have always been strange. You mean? Zeta wondered. In his grief, he suddenly caught on to a possible way out, like Sun Wukong suddenly becoming clear-headed after a knock to the head. Zero thought too. He looked at the ultimate bracelet on his wrist. The Shining Star's drive could be used. Zero, someone will have to go in the future, Hikari murmured, his words heavy with implication. Guang shook his head beside them. You can't use that move lightly. Remember how the impactor crisis started. Reversing time brings unpredictable variables. Zero nodded. Guang was right. Star drives had a way of spawning unknowns. Yet Hikari's earlier sentence lingered in Zero's mind. Someone will go in the future? Are you referring to? Hikari didn't finish the thought. He only stared at the Eternal Core, lost in thought. Then Hikari stood up. I'll go to the Science and Technology Bureau. He hurried off, pulling Zeta and Lebut with him. Back in Triga's space-time, in the ruins of the Eternal Core, Kengo felt his strength dwindling. The light of hope he had held inside had finally begun to pour outward, reaching all of humanity. The stone statues, transformed by Ruru-ye and Hudra, were restored at last to their original forms. At least in that one thing, he had not let Daigo down. Kengo let out a small, relieved laugh. Then the smile vanished. There was still one task left. Hudra's interference had driven the Eternal Core wild. The only one who could calm it now was him. This will be my last transformation, won't it? He thought, forcing his right hand up to clutch the Triga sparklance. Purple, red, and silver light coalesced into the towering form of Triga. The giant approached the golden heart of the core and slowly sank into it, merging with it. Like a leaf adrift on a pool, he tried to soothe the core's turmoil. Just as his consciousness was about to fade, a pull snapped him back out. A voice, distant and familiar, spoke behind him, tinged with accusation and loneliness. Are you going to abandon me again without a word? Kengo's eyes flew open. In the photon space, Carmiara had taken human form and wrapped her arms around him from behind. Carmiara? Weren't you and Dagon unconscious? Kengo asked. She smirked. I passed out, then you went off alone to stabilize the core, and now you plan to abandon me too, Kengo Manaka? Kengo searched for words. After a long moment, he could only say, I'm sorry. This is something I must do. He held her hand gently, as if trying to memorize the touch, then slowly tightened his grip, as if asking her to let him finish this alone. I don't want to see you turn into. Then guess why I can appear here. Carmiara cut him off. She poured the rare energy within her into him. Kengo felt it, energy that contained both Carmiara's darkness and his own light, the light of shining eternity, the power of the eternal core. It had remained inside Carmiara and had not warped into something else. I came because it no longer repelled me, she said, cold and resigned. It's not that this thing is kind. It accepts me because you're too weak right now to resolve its imbalance. The eternal core doesn't go out of control because of light or dark, she added, emotion and fear in her voice. It reacts to whether the power touching it is stable. If you hadn't regained your memories and spoken to me, I might have become Megalotiga. Kengo listened, relieved and repentant. He owed Carmiara so much and could never repay her. At least this outcome avoided a dead end for both of them. Then the relief ebbed. Kengo's voice hardened. I don't want you to die here with me. Enough, Kengo Manaka? Carmiara lifted her finger and pressed it to his lips, silencing him. Don't think you can leave me this time. You promised you would let me see Ruya bloom with my own eyes, that you would earn my forgiveness. Are you going to break that promise too? Kengo shook his head, opening his mouth to explain, but Carmiara's finger stayed pressed gently against his lips. She muttered to herself, softer now. I never cared for atonement. I never cared what humanity thought of me. The eternal core, I have no particular feelings about it now. The ugly thought of becoming Megalotiga to see you? Leave that to Hudra. Her finger traced circles at his throat, then her lips brushed his earlobe. Only you, Triga, Kengo Manaka. You are mine. My life, my death, my light, and mine alone. Holding him like that, Carmiara and Triga fell into the golden heart of the core together. Bindings of light swallowed them both. A moment later, above where the audience watched, a crack opened in the void. From a strange, colorful alternate dimension, two gigantic figures punched through. One looked like the original Ultraman, younger and with a shield on his forearm. The other looked somewhat goofy and brandished a sword topped with the head of a certain cosmic villain. They didn't hesitate. Following the energy fluctuations, they flew straight to the eternal core. Near the entrance, Labut motioned for Zeta to return to his human form. If Belial Twilight touches the eternal core, the consequences could be unpredictable. It's safer this way. That's true, Zeta agreed, and amid a petulant grumble from the Bebe sword, he stowed it and shifted back. The two entered the ruined chamber where the eternal core pulsed. They saw the two figures, Triga and Carmiara, clasped together, their life energy rapidly draining. Zeta and Libut exchanged looks and moved to act. Light flared in Libut's hands and a pile of strange instruments appeared. I'll install Officer Hikari's devices nearby to help stabilize the core, Libut said, already assembling them. Zeta nodded and edged toward the pair. Inside Zeta's miracle house, Haruki and Zeta exchanged anxious looks. You do it? It feels weird if I'm the one to do this, Haruki said. Okay. Zeta was willing. He extended his right hand and pressed both palms against Triga and Carmiara, sending into them two incredibly warm life energies, Hikari's life solidification technology. According to Agwang, those devices could assist in calming the core, but the key was still Triga himself taking part. That meant the two would probably have to remain inside the core for a long time, months, or maybe years, until it stabilized. They couldn't leave, but at least their lives would be saved, and they would have the time together. The eternal core did not reject the infusion. It seemed capable of sensing the goodwill behind it. The goofy-looking one cleared his throat and, in the same earnest tone he'd used when he first met Haruki, tried to sound proper. Triggerman, open your eyes. I am. Zafa, you done yet? You've always been in my heart, with a smile on your face. Triggerman, open your eyes. I am Zeta. Was that really Zeta's honest voice? A hallucination at the edge of death? Kengo's consciousness slowly came back into focus, and he forced his eyes open. Through the haze, he saw the slightly unfinished Ultraman from the Land of Light waving at him. Zeta, Haruki, why are you here? Wait, my body! He realized the life energy that had been nearly spent was suddenly abundant. His old wounds were knitting themselves closed. This is Officer Hikari's life stabilization device. Zeta beamed with pride. Officer Hikari's inventions are the best. He fumbled for words, trying to explain the strange time-space twist. His past self's live broadcast had altered the future. Hikari had studied the eternal core and made a stabilizer, and those future visitors had seen the broadcast, but it all sounded too convoluted. He condensed it to the essentials. In short, you and the person beside you are no longer in mortal danger, Zeta said. But given the eternal core's power, even with Hikari's device, it'll take time to fully stabilize. Laboot stepped forward. You'll need to stay inside for now. I understand. Thank you, both of you. Kengo nodded, grateful. He could feel the device's power helping to restrain the runaway core. As worried as he had been, relief bloomed in him. He glanced at Zeta and thought, not for the first time, that Zeta was a pretty good fit for Akito. Right now, Libut said, glancing at Carmiera and then at Kengo with a look of odd, relieved amusement. Zeta and I will check on the others and deal with monsters rampaging elsewhere. Kengo, see you later. Haruki and Zeta waved. Take care of things. Kengo laughed. Wait, Zeta, did you forget something? Oh, Haruki, thanks. Zeta suddenly dashed back after remembering something. He returned holding a small white flower, carefully. The eternal core didn't reject it. When we arrived, there were flowers blooming everywhere that looked like the one you grow, so I brought one for you, he said. Also, when the humans saw them, they smiled so happily. Not like Gijera's smiles. Those were real. Kengo took the blooming Ruruyi gently and thanked them again. The pair said nothing more and scampered off to bother Akito. Hikari, I love you to death, someone shouted amid the live broadcast. Light! Oh, light! I finally understand Alien Emperor now. The crowd, who had been reeling from sorrow moments before, erupted into thunderous cheers when Zeta used Hikari's device to revive the Tekka duo. Daigo, currently piloting the Guts wing with Shinjo on patrol, was so excited he slapped the control stick too hard. An alarm blared. What's going on, Daigo? Shinjo shouted from the back seat, his face going pale. Switch to manual. Let me take over. I already let go, Daigo said. But he was joking, euphoric. He laughed, breathless with relief. Kengo, we'll meet again! Ha! Between their shouts, the Guts wing plunged toward the sea, splashing down. Land of Light, Technology Development Bureau. We'll go save Triga in the future for sure. Zeta trembled with excitement. Calm down, Zeta. Don't break any of Officer Hikari's things, Laboot said with a half-exasperated, half-pleased look. He was secretly glad his future friend had escaped the fate of sacrifice. Zeta, next to him, studied the stabilizer and asked, Is the eternal core in the Triga universe similar to the energy tower of the kingdom? Laboot considered the question while Zeta examined the device. Kengo watched their retreating backs with gratitude, as if a long nightmare were finally over. The pressure that had wrapped around him was easing. Warm, plentiful life energy filled him, and he felt, at last, light. He was still technically on duty, but it felt more like a relaxing aftercare than combat. Except for one thing, he glanced at Carmiara, who sat beside him with her eyes closed. Kengo realized he'd never seen her in human form properly. During the battle they had merged, and in the chaos there had been no time to observe her. Now, after the evil god had been defeated and she had returned to her natural form, he couldn't take his eyes off her sleeping face. His heart beat faster. Carmiara, who had woken up earlier and pretended to remain asleep out of embarrassment, suddenly felt Kengo's gaze on her. She couldn't keep pretending. How much longer are you going to stare? She said, her voice betraying a slight rise, a small sign of shyness that only she would notice. Kengo snapped out of his daze, smiled sheepishly, and looked away. Seeing him like that made Carmiara's monochrome eyes curve into an involuntary smile. She coughed, remembering her earlier words, and turned her face away to pretend indifference. She tried to be stern. After all, she was the leader of the Dark Giants, but his presence always tugged at her. Carmiara, look, Kengo said softly. She turned reluctantly. The Ruruyi's petals glimmered with warm sparks. Reflected in her eyes, they were almost comforting. A faint melody emanated from the flower. I see the crystal raindrops fall, and see the beauty of it all. It's when the sun comes shining through. Is this the Ruruyi you always wanted me to see? She murmured. To make those rainbows in my mind. When I think of you sometime, and I want to spend some time with you, for... She touched her cheek. The streaks where tears had fallen were still there. They wouldn't vanish because of a bloom. They were part of her. She quietly scolded Trigger in her head for being so foolish, but the song continued, gentle and intimate. Just the two of us, building castles in the sky. Kengo, are you smiling? She asked, startled by how the melody and the moment had pulled her back. How did you know? She tried to deny it. A smile suits you better, he said, and pointed to the corner of her mouth. 30 million years of wishful waiting culminated in that moment. Carmiera flushed and snapped. Ach, don't be ridiculous. But she couldn't hide the curve of her lips. Stop being so glib, she added, trying to put on a stern face. Don't forget, I will never forgive you, you know that. Her blunt words made Kengo fall silent for a beat. He wondered if he had pushed too far, if he had hurt her. She hesitated, torn between scolding and concern. Then she remembered who she was, the big sister, the leader. She cleared her throat as if to look away and avoid seeming soft. Before she could move, Kengo spoke. He held the ruruyi out to her. I won't forget. You're always in my heart. He pressed the flower into her hand, but his fingers didn't leave. Instead, he gently held hers. His eyes were tender as he whispered, coaxing almost like a lullaby, with a smile. What are you? What smile? I... Carmiera stammered as if her pulse had stopped. Just the two of us, you and I. The flower's song poured through the eternal core, wound around the ruined landscape, and spread across a world coming back to smiles. Golden light gathered, the dewdrops on the ruruyi glinted rainbows, and Kengo and Carmiera slowly embraced and kissed. The image froze there as the broadcast cut. Light of Hope Inventory Series, playback ended. After many trials and tribulations, the stories of Tiga and Triga temporarily come to an end. They will appear again in the future to be with everyone, but for now, they must enjoy their own peace. So that's it? The ancient melodrama finally finished, and Carmiera was a tsundere all along. Ha! One sentence from Kengo made her so red, she went from yandere to tsundere instantly. Kengo woke up after inexplicably getting knocked around and found everything sorted out. It's hilarious. Good. I'm done with the couple feeding. Why can't I find a girlfriend? An irate voice from a certain ace pilot drifted through the chat. Time flowed differently across the two universes. Shinjo, still bewildered after helping Tiga defeat Gijera and watching Daigo crash, had been pushed beyond endurance by the whole spectacle. 3 days later, after everyone tended to their affairs and woke from whatever rest they allowed themselves, a line of text appeared on the sky screen. Next inventory video will be played soon. Theme: cross-dressing big shot. Countless viewers' eyes widened. P.S. Hey, you didn't expect Zeta and Captain Ri to show up, did you? Hikari Tech really is #1 in the universe. Seriously, changing history is hard, but I found a timeline that let us patch things. Zeta and the others who hadn't yet gone to Earth happened to see the live broadcast. Hikari studied the Eternal Core early and built an auxiliary stabilizer, then appeared in the future timeline. Still, the Eternal Core is power on the level of Emperor Belial. No matter how great Zeta is, he couldn't stabilize it instantly. So we let the Tekka duo pull overtime, talk, heal, and grow closer. It fit the show's continued storyline and connects to the movie plot. Consider it a little sweet for the fans. If you like the candy, show it some fierce love in the comments. Alien Empire. Turo. Hey! 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 Cross-dresser. To curious readers, there's a short explanation at the end of this chapter. I've also revised the ending of the previous chapter. When those 4 words appeared, they immediately confused countless viewers. Ultraman and the phrase cross-dressing, how could they possibly be connected? By human standards of clothing, the only things that ever fit were the old folks' red bed sheets. Maybe armor counted. Outside of some eccentrics in the Z95 Nebula, it was rare to see an Ultra Warrior in everyday clothes. But the title sounded lighthearted, and a lot of people breathed a sigh of relief. At least it wouldn't be a life-or-death tale this time, right? After all, Ah Guang didn't have to show his divine might every episode. Hiss, this is really curious. Is there an Ultra cross-dresser on the Land of Light? Does it mean the Ultra and their human host have different genders? Possible. No, very possible. Why can't it be a 2-dimensional monster girl? No, monster girls are too limiting. Life XP has no limits. I vote for an original monster crossdresser. All right, I'm in. Also, we mustn't forget that certain cross-dressing Zetan alien, Triga space-time. The runaway Eternal Core was gradually stabilizing, but the person trapped inside the giant core was anything but calm. Carmiara, you're too close. Don't press on me like that. Our mission is to stabilize the Eternal Core. Hey, look, there's even a big screen here, a cross-dresser. Aren't you curious who it is? Why look at the screen when I can look at you? Don't come any closer. Kengo Manaka, let me see. Don't hide from me. Watching Kengo dodge, Carmiara dropped her smile and put on an exaggeratedly angry face. Kengo was terrified of that expression, so he quickly leaned in. You really did come back obediently. Carmiara's eyes gleamed, and the corners of her glossy red lips curved up. I won't do anything bad to you. What do you have to be afraid of? She gestured for him to lie down, put his head in her lap, and gently stroked his cheek. Her dark hair fell and brushed Kengo's neck, a little tickle. I always wondered, if I'd been the one to find you and raise you back then, would I be the one to lull you to sleep like this? Planet Juron. Cosmos clapped his hands, swept up the ashes of those Absolute Clan soldiers who tried to reason with him and failed, then died of shame and blood vomiting, and tossed the ashes into space. Justice, who just returned, flew over anxiously. She only relaxed when she saw Cosmos was unharmed. They exchanged a few words, then both glanced at the new caption on the big screen. Crossdresser, Cosmos subconsciously looked at Justice. Justice was genderless, but her human host was a woman, and a beautiful one. Justice's usual voice was a cool, sexy female tone, but in battle it turned into a powerful, almost masculine war cry. Keep staring at me and I'll use Crusher mode to reason with you, Justice snapped. She was annoyed at his persistent stare. She'd rushed back in a panic when Cosmos was attacked, and he dared to keep staring. Cough, cough? Sorry, Cosmos gave an awkward smile. Land of Light. Zeta, who'd been used as a guinea pig in the Technical Development Bureau and then kicked out by Agwang, had returned to security. Master, what does cross-dressing mean? It means exactly what it says, but given the differences between ultras and humans, maybe it's not just about clothes. Zero seemed barely interested. Cross-dressing? How could that relate to a hot-blooded youth like him? Impossible. If it were Belial's resurrection, he might get worked up and want to kill him again. Then again, if Belial actually cross-dressed in front of him, he'd probably mock him while beating him up. Hug him? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Nearby, Taro's thoughts matched Zero's. The new clip would probably be like the old Yuki one, stories of warriors from other worlds. He felt lucky. His darker past had never been aired. Sure, he had no flashy highlights lately, but becoming chief instructor of the space garrison was a highlight, right? Among the Ultra Brothers, he had the best luck. Then the screen's narration pushed into every world. Starting the next inventory video, Crossdresser Series 1, Imperial Alien, heh, Taro, my Taro, heh. Subtitle, huh? Higashi Kotaro's baffled face. Why me? What's an Imperial Alien? What kind of Taro's gratitude? Me showing gratitude to an Imperial Alien? Gross. He racked his brain and couldn't recall ever hearing those words. Just the thought of the Imperial Alien's ugly, Hipporito-like face made him queasy. Father? Taiga was puzzled. How could this involve his father? The Imperial Alien, wasn't that the Land of Light's sworn enemy? Their war had lasted millennia. Hearing the alien's lecherous tone made Taiga's scalp prickle. Seeing Taro's bewildered face, Taiga relaxed. Maybe father had no idea either. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Though Taro's past had been hinted at before, calling Ultra Mother Ultra Mom repeatedly, fighting Hokuto Seiji, Taro had explained that the person who looked like Higashi Kotaro wasn't him. Taiga believed his father without question. Now that Taro had appeared on screen, Taiga was thrilled. He pulled Fuma and Titus close and watched intently, imagining what his father had been like on Earth. Brave, heroic. Kingdom Universe. What does my Taro mean? Tregier's tone had an odd edge. This Imperial Alien was irritating. White Belial beside him snickered. Any gossip about Ken's family turned him into a mischievous gossiper. The two old troublemakers, both with their own agendas, watched on with keen interest. The video began. A spaceship appeared, its weapons aimed at the Land of Light. A figure like a radiation-mutated lobster, its body blue, beat gongs and drums, seemingly celebrating. Evil alien. Hey, this guy looks a bit like Bolton. Wait, the Imperial alien alone wants to blow up the Land of Light? Where's security? Where's the defense? Why isn't anyone reacting? Officer Hikari, help. Viewers were baffled. The enemy's cannon was literally pointed at the Land of Light. Why were the Ultras silent? Hadn't the last time Babar impersonated Astra and stole the Ultra key shown them to be vulnerable? Was the Land of Light's security paper thin? The comments flew. Then, at the Imperial alien's countdown, a toy monkey-shaped communicator beside him chirped that the Ultra Brothers had all gone to Earth. Perfect, many villainous viewers thought. With the brothers absent, blitz the Land of Light. But the Imperial alien was strangely chivalrous. He immediately decided to go to Earth and find the Ultra Brothers. The scene cut to Earth. 4 red silhouettes streaked across the sky. Ultraman, Seven, Jack, Ace. Aside from Zoffy, the original Ultra Brothers had all arrived. Another team fight with unlucky Ace in it? Viewers chuckled anxiously. It'd been a while since the old guard showed up. The 4 brothers landed by the sea, transformed into human form, neat and pleasant to look at. A clear, strong voice rang out. Higashi Kotaro, smiling, ran up. "Brothers are here, welcome! Why did you call us all out? Where's Brother Zoffy?" "He's patrolling in space for safety. He'll be here soon." They chatted as they walked and reached the barbecue Kotaro had prepared. "Aren't we waiting for Brother Zoffy?" "It's okay, I'm starving. He's one of us. It doesn't matter if we wait." They began eating and laughing, relaxed and brotherly. Viewers were amused. Captain Flamehead patrolling while his brothers barbecue. Such brotherly affection. Zoffy smiled helplessly. Could he be blamed for not having a human host? Even with Sakamizu, he'd only met him twice. Friend was more accurate. The scene shifted. A spaceship hovered over the city, and the Imperial alien leapt out, laughing wildly and wreaking havoc. Kotaro and his 4 brothers were still enjoying their meal when a ZAT member contacted them. "Kotaro, a strange alien has appeared in the city. It's urgent. Return to base." "Understood." Kotaro closed the comm with a sigh. "It's so hard to finally eat with my brothers." "What are you saying? This is your job." The others urged him to hurry. "Wait, Taro." Zoffy's voice cut in to identify the enemy, the vicious Imperial alien. The 5 brothers exchanged looks and discussed tactics. Finally, they decided Kotaro should transform into Taro, lure the enemy out, and let the group handle the fight, both protecting the city and giving a righteous group beating. So, Taro went. Many viewers thought the chief instructor's bait would be dramatic. Fight, feign weakness, lure the enemy into a trap. But what happened next made everyone drop their jaws. After transforming, Kotaro didn't throw a single punch. He swiveled and bolted, full sprint, his legs a blur. Pfft! Ha-ha! Instructor Taro's running posture is hilarious. Is that his tactic? Run from the start? The Imperial alien isn't dumb. How could it fall for that? Viewers predicted failure. But unbelievably, the Imperial alien took the bait. It waved its pincers and chased Taro with an equally comical gait. Taro ran ahead, glanced back, waved as if to say, "Come chase me, I have Taiji Gigi syrup." Viewers, like father, like son, this was pure slapstick. If they weren't in Tom and Jerry, it was a shame. After a long chase without catching Taro, the Imperial alien finally figured it out. He wasn't stupid. His eyes widened as he realized he'd been fished. "Hey, I'm actually a genius." He shrugged off the trick and started wrecking the city. So Taro's plan had failed. Viewers expected him to leap into action and stop the alien. Instead, his next move left everyone bewildered. "No choice. Call the brothers out," Taro said, executed a neat French military salute, and flew away. He didn't fire a shot. He just ran and then flew off without fighting. Taiga murmured in disbelief. "Father, what are you doing?" "Taro, it's over." His image in his son's heart was probably collapsing. P.S. I owe everyone an apology. If you look back at the previous chapter, you'll see the theme has changed. I originally planned to write about the Debt King, but ended up switching to the cross-dressing theme. I'd written some plots for the original idea, but nothing felt right. No matter how I rewrote it, I wasn't satisfied. Forcibly publishing it would have disappointed you, so I changed the theme for now. The debt plot will be carefully reworked and added later. I'm truly sorry. Also, there's a debate online about whether Kotaro is Taro himself or not. Opinions vary, and it confused me. It won't affect the main plot, but if you have more reliable theories, I'd like to hear them. Seeing Taro fly off, countless viewers were stunned. Father of Ultra nearly choked. When had his eldest son become so outrageous? He knew Taro had been mischievous as a child, but he never imagined he'd act like this even after coming to Earth. Run away at the first sign of an enemy? Where was the dignity of an Ultra warrior? If he'd at least touched the Imperial alien, it would have shown he tried. Where was the swallow kick? Many people on Earth burst into laughter. At this point, if you replaced Taro with a Tauros from Pokemon, it might at least do 5 points of damage to the Imperial alien, but Taro ran. Everyone was speechless. Enduring all the stares, Taro coughed twice and offered a weak defense. It was a tactical retreat. To call the brothers for help, a tactical retreat. Embarrassed though he was, as chief instructor he felt a little better when he saw the curious faces of the younger warriors. Much like his disciple Taiga, the master, this elder, this prince, unexpectedly approved of him. Father of Ultra nodded. Well, it's not entirely bad. I'll use this as a negative example for the youngsters, to teach them the importance of independence. Kingdom Universe. Triggear, watching, was also taken aback. When Taro first returned from Earth, he had told Triggear all about his time there. Bonds, hope, friendship. Back then Triggear, lost and confused, couldn't understand those things, but he listened with excitement and even envied Taro. The combat data Taro brought back had given Triggear the crucial information for the Taiga Spark. Taro had shared it freely. Triggear had never suspected Taro had such a ridiculous little secret. He chuckled himself. Messenger of Light, you two have an embarrassing story. How amusing. On a distant planet, Ultraman Orb watched with a mix of surprise and amusement. When Hikaru Raido had been on Earth, Taro had guided him more than once. In fact, Taro had sacrificed himself to help Orb defeat Dark Luciel. To Orb, Hikaru, Taro had always been a calm, reliable senior, almost a father figure. He never expected his elder to be so childish. Orb watched with interest, eager to see what antics the Imperial alien had provoked that could make Taro behave like this. Back on Earth, Kotaro had returned to his human form and rejoined the barbecue on the beach. This method won't work, it won't follow me, he shouted. Hokuto, always hot-headed and fiercely protective of his younger brother, immediately sprang up, red-eyed with anger. No choice, we'll go together. Brothers, the situation is urgent, let's take down the Imperial alien. Hideki followed closely. Everyone watching felt their approval. Ace was fiery, but he was truly devoted to his little brother. As soon as Taro returned, Ace wanted to help. Before they got far, however, Ultraman blocked them. No. If we go in openly, the city will become a battlefield. Zafi appeared and waved them back. Don't wait for Taro. Hurry back. You must understand the difficulty of his mission. Brothers, aren't you going to help me? Kotaro asked, a touch of wounded pride in his voice. Taro, don't always rely on us. Get back to the fight, Moriboshi Dan advised. Kotaro thought for a moment and nodded. I understand. I'll go back. As he left, Hokuto, watching his brother depart, suddenly stood. Then I'll go help him. Wait, the others shouted and quickly stopped him. Now is the test. The moment he becomes a hero, Zafi said. They let him go to grow. Watching this, many viewers understood. Young Taro liked to lean on his brothers. Zafi and the others had decided to force him to overcome that weakness by sending him out alone. It was stern but well-intentioned. And still, Ace's devotion to Taro warmed a lot of hearts. Maybe Taro's gratitude wasn't toward the Imperial alien at all, people joked, but toward his brothers. When Hokuto protested, Zafi raised a hand. They argued about helping openly or in secret. Finally, Zafi said, there is a way, but only one. Everyone watching leaned forward. What method did Captain Zafi mean? The scene shifted to the city. The Imperial alien was rampaging, its massive pincers spewing flames that turned buildings to rubble. The SAT jets scrambled in to engage, lobbing ordnance at the creature, but their attacks were like tickles, smoke and sparks, but no real effect. 2 children ran past on the ground. Seeing the jet's attacks failing, one boy, Kenichi, panicked and shouted, Beast! Dad, you have to try harder! SAT, do something! He clutched a toy Ultra Drop Ball and hurled it at the monster. Beast! Imperial Alien Bandit! The crowd laughed at the kid's fierce vocabulary. Taro's a model of civility, like Leo, someone said. This child sounds like he's been raised on Mother, so polite. The comments kept coming, some teasing, some fond. The Imperial alien grew impatient. Flames lashed out and struck one of the fighter jets dead on. The damaged jet sputtered, then plunged toward the ground in a trail of smoke. Kenichi cried out, "Dad!" and viewers tensed. SA-8 pilots were heroes with families, and seeing one fall moved many to silent fear. At that moment, triumphant, uplifting music swelled. A figure streaked in at high speed, a star emblem on his chest, Zoffy. He arrived just in time and caught the crippled jet before it hit the ground. Cheers rose instantly. "Flamehead Captain, you're finally on stage. You may not be the lead, but you're always there for your brothers." But the cheering turned to bafflement in an instant. Zoffy hadn't just grabbed the falling jet, he'd also seized another intact fighter jet beside it and carried it off. Viewers on Earth stared at the screen, bewildered. "Zoffy, what are you doing? Why take the other undamaged jet? Is that the one way you were talking about? Hijacking human aircraft?" 140. The brothers who went to great lengths. Zoffy is planning to save that fighter jet, right? Then why did he take the other fighter jet too? Is this the only way he mentioned? Ultra hijacking? Maybe he realized the Imperial alien was too strong and took the SAT team out of the area in advance to avoid a crash? Countless viewers were baffled by Zoffy's actions. For a while, they couldn't parse his intention. "You just left without looking back. Why didn't you put them down?" they demanded. Zoffy on the screen turned his head in exasperation. "I already said, this is a tactic. Why are you all staring at me like that?" At the space garrison, Zoffy shook his head, helpless. Taro was obviously the protagonist. A close-up on him would have sufficed. Why did he always have to show up on camera? Now everyone would assume we're pulling some insane stunt whenever a video of the Ultra Brothers surfaced. The video shifted to the seaside. The 5 S8 members and Dr. Otani lay stretched out on the sand, all unconscious. Hayata, Moroboshi-dan, Hideki Go, and Hokuto rushed over. Seeing their condition, Hokuto cursed, "Damn, we should have gone out to help sooner." "But brother, what are we supposed to do about it?" Hideki asked, looking at the others. Hayata and Moroboshi-dan were calm. "Don't panic. This is the method Zoffy described. Yes, the 4 of us will take the forms of the 4 SA team members, and Zoffy will take Dr. Otani." Hokuto, usually quick to anger, frowned. "Why all this trouble? Can't we just reveal ourselves? If we do that now, the Imperial alien will start a war immediately. We have to change our appearances," Hayata answered. "I see." Hideki realized, this way we can get close to Taro and protect him without being noticed. "All right, let's transform quickly." As soon as Hokuto heard he could help Taro, a grin lit his face. The viewers at home finally understood Zoffy's only method. The Ultra Brothers were possessing the SAT members, and Dr. Otani, using those disguises to deceive the Imperial alien and get close enough to secretly assist Taro. The Ultras struck their transformation poses and became their full-size forms. Zoffy used Ultra telekinesis and focused on Dr. Otani. Against a kaleidoscopic backdrop, the SAT members merged with the Ultras. They opened their eyes and stood up simultaneously. "All right, let's go help Taro," someone said, and Hokuto, maintaining his self-appointed role as the doting older brother, was about to rush off. "Wait," the first generation called, stopping him. "We must keep our transformations into the SA team members secret from Taro until the very end." Zoffy said, "We're training Taro. We absolutely must not interfere. Understand?" Across the broadcast, viewers finally grasped the length Zoffy and the others had gone to train their younger brother. After all, Taro's past performances had been a bit erratic. Earthlings have a saying, "A lion pushes its cub into the fray." We must face hardship with Taro like a lion. "Understand?" "Understood," came a booming chorus. Moroboshi-dan's reply was so loud everyone laughed. No wonder he used to hammer Leo so thoroughly back then. Now the reason made sense. For a moment, viewers felt a pang of sympathy for Leo. Back on the land of light at the space garrison, Taro stared, stunned. "Wait, those SAT team members back then? They were really you brothers?" He could hardly believe it. Even though he had later learned the team members had been possessed by his brothers, he had not expected it had started so early. No wonder they had been teasing him so strangely back then. So it had been a setup all along. Taro's expression turned childlike as he looked at his brothers with mixed emotions. "Father, your uncles wanted to help you too," Taiga said, suppressing a laugh. Taiga's comment made everyone smile. "We did it for your own good. the brothers explained. You relied on us too much back then. Even Taiga, at your age, was more independent than you. Taro couldn't truly be upset. He was just surprised that such a secret had been kept from him for so long. More than anything, he felt gratitude. From childhood to now, thanks to his older brother's efforts and example, he had become who he was. Brothers, don't worry. I've grown a lot since you left, and I won't disappoint you, he promised. At that, everyone in the security force breathed easier. The broadcast subtitle, Taro's repayment, was not ironic. It was sincere. Taro's growth was indeed his repayment to Zafi and the others. The video continued. As Zafi and the others, in their merged forms, hurried toward the fight, Kotaro returned to the city, transformed, and engaged the Imperial alien. Taro gathered cosmic energy and unleashed a barrage of linear attack rays from his hands, shooting beam after shooting beam, blanketing the Imperial alien in thick white smoke. Boom! The smoke filled the air, but, true to the cruel pattern, the attack inflicted no lasting damage. When the dust cleared, the Imperial alien stood intact and began to laugh at Taro. Taro, prone to impulsiveness, grew frantic. He raised his right hand, clenched his left fist on his hip, and energy swelled around him. Storium Ray, he cried. The cosmic power in the atmosphere funneled through his body and burst from his T-shaped arms. A dazzling rainbow beam, searing at temperatures past 400,000 degrees, roared outward. The blast struck the Imperial alien in a thunderous explosion that sent him staggering backward amid flying sparks. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the Imperial alien appeared to erase the explosion itself, as if rewinding time, and his chest healed instantly. Taro was stunned. His finishing move had had no effect. Before he could recover, the Imperial alien unleashed brilliant blue currents from his giant pincers, his signature Lightning 5 whip. Snap! Sizzle! The electric whip struck Taro, and the powerful current numbed his body. He dropped to one knee, surrounded by crackling arcs of electricity that made viewers shiver. Triga Space-Time Universe. This familiar scene, Carmiara murmured as she watched Taro reel from the lightning whip. She had wanted to wake Kengo to watch it with him, to relive the feeling herself, but he had fallen asleep, exhausted from holding back his emotions. He lay on her lap, peaceful and rare in that state. A teasing impulse flitted through her. Leaning forward, her long black hair fell in front of Kengo's face. She hesitated. This closeness in human form felt new and strange, and a blush rose in her cheeks. Suddenly, in his sleep, Kengo frowned and grabbed a lock of her hair, bringing it toward his mouth as if to bite it. Maybe he was dreaming of eating ramen with Haruki and Akito. He wasn't fully conscious. "Hey, you can't eat this," Carmiara whispered, anxious but not wanting to startle him. She gently pried his hand open and carefully pulled her hair free. Kengo relaxed, but she found her hand still held in his palm. She tugged lightly, but his grip wouldn't release. The warmth of his hand spread slowly into her chest. Carmiara's eyes curved into crescent moons as she smiled softly. "Good night, Triga," she whispered.